Welcome to Wife Cheating Story. I hope you have an enjoyable and relaxing time listening. Let's get started.
Stephen had never felt such unease stepping into his own home until the night he glimpsed that incriminating text on Olivia's phone. "Miss you. Same time tomorrow?" it read, from a number he'd never seen. His heart pounded as she snatched the phone away, stammering excuses about a vendor mix-up. But the late-night messages, the secret withdrawals labeled wedding supplies, and the hotel key card he found in her car all screamed one cold truth. Olivia, his wife of 8 years, was hiding something deeply wrong. Torn between dread and fury, Stephen resolved to uncover every last detail, no matter the cost. Before we dive into the full story, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. And if you're enjoying this tale, don't forget to subscribe and tap the notification bell so you never miss any of our upcoming stories. Chapter 1. Stephen Fielding could not recall the last time he felt so uneasy stepping through the front door of his own home. Normally, after a long shift managing a big construction project in Boston, he would walk inside to find Olivia, his wife of 8 years, greeting him with a warm meal, or at least a gentle smile. Tonight, though, the house gave off an unnatural hush. The overhead kitchen light glowed white on spotless countertops, and the only sound was the faint hum of the fridge. He placed his keys onto the small ceramic dish near the coat rack. Glancing around, Stephen noticed Olivia wasn't in the kitchen. Her purse lay on the counter, but the phone that usually stuck out of the side pocket was gone. That in itself was no big deal. Perhaps she was in the bedroom or shower. Yet a restless voice in his mind whispered that the mood felt off. Pushing aside his nerves, he headed down the hallway. His boots, scuffed with concrete dust, clicked against the hard wood. At the bedroom threshold, he saw Olivia lying on her side, fully dressed, browsing something on her phone with an intense look. She didn't notice him at first. A second later, she startled, yanked the phone to her chest, and forced a crooked smile. "Stephen, you're home late," she said, her tone strained. "Everything okay on site?" He nodded. "A few supply delays. We had to confirm some structural details before pouring the next slab." He expected her usual interest. Olivia typically asked him about his day, even if construction wasn't her forte. Instead, she just turned off her screen and propped the phone out of sight. The movement was too swift, too guarded. Stephen's heart sank with worry, but he disguised it with a calm voice. "Is everything all right?" he asked. "You seem distracted." She shrugged. "One of my wedding clients is having a meltdown. Something about the cake design." That might be true, Stephen thought, but the sharp way she tucked her phone under the pillow made him suspect a different reason. He tried to dismiss the uneasy feeling twisting in his gut. They were just nerves. He'd been under stress at work, plus finances had been tight thanks to some unexpected project overruns. Still, Olivia's distant expression put him on alert, as if a hidden rift had begun expanding between them. Over the next day or two, Stephen noted Olivia's increasingly odd behavior. She used to tag along on supply runs, or they'd meet for quick lunches downtown. Now she canceled their usual Thursday pizza date, claiming she had to meet a VIP client dealing with last-minute wedding chaos. One morning, Stephen found her in the living room wearing a perfume he hadn't smelled in years, a scent she typically saved for special occasions. Yet she mentioned no upcoming events. When he casually asked about the new fragrance, she gave a vague laugh and said, "A vendor gifted it," without meeting his eyes. Even in bed, Olivia began rolling to the far edge of the mattress by midnight. Whenever he tried to coax her into a warm embrace, she murmured about exhaustion or a headache. He admired her drive as a wedding planner. Her schedule often was hectic in peak seasons, but this felt like more than just a busy schedule. One evening, after finishing a phone call with a construction supplier, Stephen saw Olivia carrying an overnight bag to the laundry room. "Need to wash these towels," she explained, refusing eye contact. "Is that from last weekend's event?" She stiffened, gave a flustered "yes," then disappeared. Stephen's phone vibrated with a text from his best friend, Dennis Wood. He absent-mindedly slid it open, but caught only a snippet. "Heard Olivia was spotted at that new steakhouse near the harbor. Thought you two might be celebrating?" Instantly, a pang of confusion struck Stephen. They hadn't gone out in weeks. Why was she at a fancy steakhouse alone or with someone else? The sense of wrongness kept mounting. Late one night, Stephen lay half awake, mind spinning with lingering project details, when he heard the telltale buzz of Olivia's phone. It was 2 in the morning. Typically, no bride or vendor would text at that hour. Before he fully realized what he was doing, Stephen leaned over quietly and glimpsed the phone's screen. A name he'd never seen, Jay. The incoming text read, "Miss you? Same time tomorrow?" His chest constricted. Same time tomorrow for what? A follow-up vendor meeting? Could be, but the tone implied something else entirely. Olivia, sensing his movement, jerked awake. She clutched the phone so fast that she almost dropped it. "Vendor mix-up," she muttered, voice tight. "I told them not to text me so late." Stephen forced a neutral expression. "All okay?" She nodded, quickly powering the device off. The room sank into darkness again. Stephen listened to the pounding of his heart, swirling with suspicion that this Jay was no typical client. For the first time, Stephen wondered if Olivia was hiding a personal affair. He hated entertaining that idea. He loved her, but too many red flags had popped up in the last few weeks. The following morning, Stephen made a point to observe her carefully. Over breakfast, he asked, "What was the meltdown last night? Another complicated design? Fiasco?" Olivia hesitated just a beat too long. "Oh yeah, the bride is changing the entire floral arrangement at the last minute. I had to juggle calls to the florist, the wedding venue, you name it." "Which venue was it again?" He sipped his coffee, feigning casual curiosity. She stammered, the Highwood Gardens. Or wait, maybe it's Maple. Maple Estates." Stephen's gaze flicked up. He knew Maple Estates well. It was a smaller, less expensive venue Olivia rarely recommended. If the bride was so wealthy and urgent about changes, Maple Estates seemed an odd choice. But Olivia rattled on with a forced laugh, then darted off to check her phone in the next room. He sensed her story didn't align with the facts. She seemed to be mixing random venue names. Ordinarily, she was sharp as a tack. When it came to details, she thrived on color-coded spreadsheets and precise schedules. If she truly had a meltdown bride on her hands, she would be naming the real venue with perfect clarity. That afternoon, Stephen's longtime friend, Dennis Wood, invited him out for a quick coffee in the city. With tension gnawing at him, Stephen welcomed the distraction. Dennis was a straightforward guy, always one to crack jokes and keep things honest. They sat by the window of a bustling cafe, the aroma of espresso heavy in the air. Dennis sipped from his paper cup and casually mentioned, "By the way, saw Olivia the other night. Or at least I thought I did from across the street. It was near that fancy steakhouse by the harbor, the new one everyone's raving about. I almost popped in to say hi, but I figured you two wanted a private dinner." Stephen's stomach clenched. "When was that?" "Wednesday night." Dennis shrugged. "Maybe I was mistaken, but the silhouette looked like her. She was dressed up. Didn't see you around, so I assumed you were with her." Stephen forced a level voice. "No, that wasn't me. I worked late Wednesday." Dennis looked puzzled. "Huh. Well, maybe I was seeing things. Or maybe she was meeting a wedding client." Stephen just nodded, mind racing. That aligned uncomfortably well with the timeline for those odd messages on her phone. Wednesday night was also the same evening she'd come home claiming a meltdown client fiasco. He left the cafe with a forced grin, telling Dennis not to worry about it. But inside, Stephen felt the pang of betrayal creeping in. His best friend had inadvertently confirmed Olivia was out somewhere that night, somewhere fancy, possibly with someone else, given that she never mentioned it to him. Conversations with Olivia grew more strained. Stephen tried small talk about a new vendor he'd discovered who specialized in high-end conference displays, thinking she might find it useful for her wedding events. She barely listened, only nodding absent-mindedly. Her phone rang. She glanced, saw an unknown or unlisted ID, and pressed ignore. He raised an eyebrow. "No wedding calls today?" She forced a laugh. "They can wait." Then she fumbled to change the subject, commenting on a local news piece. The avoidance was blatant, but Stephen let it ride. Part of him wanted to corner her with direct accusations. Another part felt too numb, too unsure of whether he wanted to know the truth. Late that evening, while she showered, Stephen considered rummaging through her phone for confirmation, but at the last second, he hesitated. He despised the notion of sinking to secret snooping. Then again, part of him said, "She's not being honest with you, why not check?" He ended up walking away from the phone on the nightstand, a heavy pit in his stomach. One weekend, Stephen took the opportunity to review their shared bank account, something they typically did together monthly, but had recently neglected. He nearly dropped his coffee mug when he saw a string of withdrawals labeled wedding supplies from random craft stores and boutique shops scattered across the city. During dinner that night, he brought it up casually. "Liv, I noticed we have quite a few supply expenses this month. Are they for your upcoming weddings? Could we get receipts so I can track them in our budgeting software?" Olivia's eyes flicked up from her plate. "Oh, yeah. The wedding supplies. I've just been picking up items for a big job. I'll gather the receipts. Might take me a bit, though I'm all over the place." Stephen caught the tense flicker in her expression. She was lying. He could see it in how she avoided eye contact and toyed nervously with her fork. In a neutral tone, he replied, "No rush. But I do need them soon. We're close to hitting our monthly threshold on credit." She nodded too quickly. "Sure. I'll find them." Days later, no receipts surfaced. That same week, Stephen received an accidental phone call from a woman named Diana, someone he vaguely recalled as Olivia's co-worker from a prior wedding expo. Diana apologized, explaining she meant to dial an adjacent contact. Feeling curious, Stephen politely asked how the big wedding planning gigs were going for Olivia's team. Diana hesitated. "Team? Actually, we haven't seen Olivia in a while. She had a partial contract with us, but she's not been to the office. I assume she was off doing private client stuff." Stephen's pulse quickened. "Oh, must be. She's been swamped, or so I hear." "Well, if you see her, tell her we've got a bunch of leads we could share if she wants them. I tried emailing, but got no response." When Stephen hung up, his heart pounded. Olivia's story about team projects was unraveling. Could she have parted ways with her co-worker group weeks ago? If so, what was she doing all day when she claimed to be at the wedding planning office or out meeting clients? He felt the puzzle pieces shifting ominously, forming a picture he didn't like. One afternoon, Stephen vacuumed the car's back seat in preparation for hauling some job site materials. Amid the seat cushions, he discovered a hotel key card, a generic plastic rectangle with no official logo. Curious, he held it up to the sunlight. Why would Olivia need a hotel key? Possibly a client's block booking, but usually those came with branded envelopes. He rubbed his thumb across the blank surface. That evening, when Olivia came home, he gently inquired about the key card. She gave a small gasp before quickly covering with a laugh. "Oh, that's from a big client I'm working with. They wanted me to pick up extra keys for their guests. I must have forgotten to return it." As Stephen studied her face, she kept tucking a loose strand of hair behind her ear, a mannerism he recognized as raw nervousness. No client's block booking would give a wedding planner a random, unbranded card. Usually hotels had at least a partial name on it or a colorful design. This was plain white, the type you see at discreet business hotels or short-stay places. He said nothing more, only nodded. Inside, his suspicion hardened to near certainty. Olivia wasn't just juggling wedding meltdown calls. She was meeting someone intimately enough to have a key to a private room. Olivia soon claimed she had a last-minute client meltdown downtown and rushed out of the house. Stephen watched her exit, noticing the subtle tension in her stance. She didn't even bother with her usual friendly wave goodbye. Left alone, Stephen quietly placed a call to an old acquaintance, Jonathan Parker. Years ago, Jonathan had served as a police officer, then moved into private investigation. They parted ways on good terms, though they seldom spoke outside the occasional holiday greeting. When the line connected, Stephen took a moment to steady his breathing. "Jonathan, it's Stephen Fielding. I'm sorry to call out of the blue." Jonathan's voice was warm. "Long time, no talk. Everything okay?" "Not exactly," Stephen said softly. I might need your help. Discreetly." A pause. "You got it if I can. Something about personal matters, I guess." Stephen clenched his jaw, scanning the empty living room that felt suddenly foreign. "Yes, my wife, Olivia. I suspect she's not being honest with me. Could be an affair. I need to confirm it." Jonathan gave a thoughtful hum. "All right, Stephen. Let's meet somewhere quiet. We'll set up a plan." Stephen ended the call, letting his frustration simmer. Enough was enough if Olivia was cheating. He refused to be the fool. He would find proof, and once he had it, he wouldn't just walk away. He'd make sure the consequences stung. Chapter 2. 2 days later, Stephen parked at a small diner in a less crowded part of Boston. As the engine idled, he spotted Jonathan Parker's black sedan near the far edge of the lot. The crisp autumn air carried a hint of chill when Stephen stepped out, scanning the windows for Jonathan. Sure enough, he sat in a corner booth, wearing a subdued gray jacket, a manila folder by his elbow. Stephen slid into the booth, nerves taut. Jonathan greeted him with a handshake that felt as steady as Stephen's was shaky. "Good to see you," Jonathan said with genuine warmth. "But I'm guessing this isn't a happy social call." Stephen exhaled slowly, discreetly studying the few patrons sipping coffee at the other tables. "No, I wish it was. Thanks for making time." Jonathan offered a sympathetic nod, then leaned in, voice low. "So you suspect your wife's messing around? Fill me in, any direct evidence yet?" Stephen hesitated, torn between frustration and sorrow. "Just scattered clues. She's defensive about her phone, sneaking out at odd hours. I found a random hotel key card in the car. Heard rumors from friends about her being places she never told me about. Her coworker says Olivia hasn't shown up in weeks. I've also found weird withdrawals labeled wedding supplies." He paused. "Nothing absolute. I need confirmation." Jonathan's gaze flicked to the manila folder. "Okay. Basic approach. Phone surveillance, maybe a GPS tracker on her car if we can manage that discreetly. Check her financial transactions thoroughly. I can do some deeper background on who she's meeting, or if she's renting a private condo. That kind of thing." Stephen's jaw tightened. "I'm not proud of sneaking around behind her back, but I can't confront her cold. She's too good at twisting arguments. I need irrefutable proof." Jonathan tapped the folder. I'll start with phone monitoring. Once I have logs or ping data, we'll see if she's calling or texting the same number repeatedly. Then we can decide how else to gather evidence. The waitress approached, and Jonathan smoothly changed the subject, ordering black coffee. Stephen asked for the same. Once she left, Jonathan laid a comforting hand on Stephen's arm. "You're doing the right thing," he said. "Better to face the truth than live in confusion. But if this leads where I suspect it will, are you prepared for the fallout?" Stephen stared out the window at passing cars. "No, but I can't stay in denial. I won't be a victim, Jonathan. If she's cheating, I promise you I'll do more than just leave." That same evening, Stephen decided to do a quick drive near the suspicious hotel he'd glimpsed in Olivia's car records. He recognized the local chain from a billboard, the Shoreline Suites, nondescript enough to allow for discreet trysts. He felt a chill as he circled the lot, scanning for Olivia's silver sedan. It wasn't there. Then, near the side entrance, he froze. Olivia stepped out in a classy black coat, accompanied by a tall, well-dressed man with dark hair. Stephen's stomach twisted. He didn't see the man's face clearly, but the posture, the easy closeness, it looked intimate. He grabbed his phone, snapping a quick photo through the windshield. In the grainy shot, Olivia angled her cheek for a kiss from the stranger. Stephen's heart pounded. This can't be happening. Could that be Dennis Wood? No. Dennis is shorter, with sandy hair. This man's different. He swallowed the sick realization that Olivia was with some other Dennis. She'd told him once there was a new consultant named Dennis in the wedding scene, though she never gave details. He forced himself not to charge out of the car. Instead, he let them drive off, memorizing the man's license plate. Inside, he seethed with humiliation and a fresh wave of heartbreak. So that's who Jay might be? Or maybe not. I need to stay calm and gather more. The next morning, while Olivia was preparing to leave, Stephen confronted her lightly about the prior evening. "You came home pretty late," he said, calmly sipping coffee at the kitchen table. "Another meltdown?" She gave a fragile smile. "Yes, sorry. Bride got cold feet. Needed reassurance. I was at a downtown bar, comforting her." "Which bar?" he asked, casually. She faltered. "Bar? I don't recall the name. Something on Hanover Street. I was more focused on the bride's breakdown." He nodded, letting her lie stand. She leaned in for a fleeting kiss on his cheek, then hurried out with that black coat slung over her arm. Stephen stared at the door, quietly acknowledging the deep wedge forming. He refused to chase after her with accusations. Not yet. If she was lying about a meltdown bride, he wanted bulletproof confirmation before deciding on his next move. Jonathan set up phone surveillance the following day. He rigged a small device disguised as a phone charger block, claiming it could snag data from her cell whenever it connected to the house Wi-Fi. Meanwhile, for an even deeper approach, Jonathan suggested placing an audio recorder in her purse. Stephen hesitated. Am I crossing a moral line? But one look at the hidden hotel card, now stashed in his desk drawer, reminded him that Olivia had crossed a line first. Jonathan arrived at the Fielding home under the pretense of being an old buddy dropping off some construction gear. While Olivia was upstairs, the detective discreetly slipped a tiny bug into the lining of her purse. Then he shot Stephen a meaningful nod. "Give it a few days," Jonathan whispered. "We'll see what private calls or meets she arranges." That night, Stephen sat in bed reading a book, and Olivia climbed under the covers half an hour later, claiming exhaustion. With her back turned, she texted someone, screen angled away from him. Stephen pretended not to notice. He felt a simmering anger. Enjoy your secrets while you can, he thought darkly. I won't remain ignorant for long. During a lunch break at the construction site, Stephen's phone buzzed. Jonathan had texted, "Got partial audio, she's definitely meeting Dennis." Mentions risking everything for him. We'll gather more. Stephen's breath caught. So the man was indeed named Dennis, but not Dennis Wood. Dennis York, he recalled from Olivia's passing mention, the friend who had similar industry connections. He left the site trailer, stepping into the dusty midday sun, rage pulsing behind his eyes. She'd confessed her devotion to this new Dennis in her phone calls, apparently. What does risking everything's mean? She's risking our marriage. Does she want to run away with him? Pacing near a stack of lumber, Stephen weighed his options. If they've already reached that level of talk, it's deeper than a fling. He needed more than just overheard words to prove it, though. He dialed Jonathan, voice low. "Do you have enough to identify him fully?" Jonathan replied, "I'm close. Possibly Dennis York, a financial operator. Let me confirm. Stephen, I know you're upset, but keep your cool or you'll tip them off." Stephen's voice was cold. "I won't lose it. But once I have every shred of evidence, I'm not just divorcing her quietly." An unexpected tip came from Faith, an event caterer Stephen occasionally hired for corporate receptions. They bumped into each other at a supply store. After exchanging pleasantries, Faith mentioned, "I hear you and Olivia might be planning a big anniversary bash soon." She's been booking lavish dinners at upscale spots. She told me it was for some personal project, like a vow renewal or a surprise. Stephen feigned a neutral laugh. "Interesting. She hasn't told me yet. Maybe she's cooking up a surprise." Faith shrugged good-naturedly. "Well, if that's the case, I hope it's spectacular." She booked some fancy dinner arrangements for special nights, as she called them. "I assumed it was for you. I was half expecting an invitation." Stephen forced a calm expression, though inside turmoil churned. Olivia's suspicious steakhouse visits were now confirmed. Faith seemed unaware of the real motive behind those lavish dinners. When Faith walked away, Stephen clenched the steering wheel in the parking lot. Olivia's using wedding funds or joint money to wine and dine Dennis? Or is there a bigger scam? Back at home that evening, Stephen's mind flicked between fury and heartbreak. He found Olivia in the den, staring at her laptop, frowning at spreadsheets. She quickly minimized the window when he approached. "Everything okay?" he asked softly, trying not to betray the tension within him. She nodded stiffly. "Just behind on booking details. An out-of-town bride's giving me headaches." He studied her, the lines of stress etched on her face. "You look worn out," he offered. "Is there anything I can do?" Her gaze darted away. "No, I'm fine. Thank you." In that moment, Stephen felt a pang of sympathy. Despite her betrayal, he could see the fear overshadowing her features, fear that her secrets were close to exposure. But he clamped down on the pity. She chose to lie. I won't be fooled by a few worried glances. He gave a brief nod and quietly exited. In the hallway, he texted Jonathan. "This has to end soon. Keep me posted." The next day, Diana. Yes, the coworker who'd called Stephen by accident ran into him at a local coffee shop. She asked if he'd managed to talk sense into Olivia. Surprised, Stephen asked what she meant. Diana sighed. "Look, I'm not trying to stir up trouble, but Olivia's basically cut herself off from the team. She used to handle some of our premium wedding deals. Lately, we can't reach her. It's hurting her reputation." Stephen pressed. "Any clue why she's distancing herself?" Diana hesitated, then spoke carefully. "There are rumors she's taken a side gig with some. Questionable investor to plan exclusive events. People say it's not even about weddings anymore. Maybe she found a more lucrative path. Just watch your back. She might be in deep. A chill crawled over Stephen. Dennis's Ponzi scheme? Some shady deals? Is she a willing partner or ignorant? He thanked Diana, mind spinning. That evening, Jonathan compiled a full folder of evidence. Stephen listened in numb silence as Jonathan explained. Olivia's got a private bank account. She's topping it up regularly. She's also meeting Dennis York at a leased condo near the harbor. I have photos, timestamps, audio logs, enough to confirm an ongoing affair. Stephen's heart felt heavy, yet his voice turned steel cold. So it's real. Jonathan placed a hand on his shoulder. Yes, it is. I'm sorry. They talk about future plans sometimes, like she might leave you eventually, but they're not certain. He's definitely entangled in some financial scheme. I picked up references to investors or payoffs. Anger flickered in Stephen's eyes. Olivia's not just cheating, she's possibly risking their finances, too. He inhaled slowly, controlling his trembling fists. Jonathan, I can't let them stomp all over me. I won't just file for divorce in a normal manner. I plan to go deeper. I want to see them both pay for this. Jonathan nodded, gaze grave. I'll help you any way I can. But be careful. If he's into shady money, he might have resources. Stephen exhaled, posture rigid. I'll need a lawyer, for starters. And a friend or two. Could you keep digging into Dennis's finances? If I can expose him, that might ruin him and teach Olivia a lesson. That night, around midnight, Stephen lay awake, ears straining for any sign that Olivia might slip out again. She remained in bed, turned away from him. Her phone, face down on the nightstand, buzzed once. She didn't move. Maybe she was asleep or ignoring it. That must be him, Stephen thought darkly. They're planning more rendezvous. Good. Let them. I'll gather everything I need. In that moment, the final piece of his emotional puzzle clicked. He no longer felt powerless or confused. He felt resolute. The time for investigating was almost over. It was time for revenge. Quietly, Stephen texted Jonathan. Confirm the final data. I have a lawyer in mind. We'll dismantle them both. Slipping the phone back onto the nightstand, he gazed at the ceiling. The mild glow from the streetlights cast faint lines across the plaster. He imagined lines across his lifelines Olivia had crossed. His wife. The betrayal stung worse than any professional setback he'd endured. But if she thought he would crumble, she was mistaken. Chapter 3. Stephen spent the next morning methodically setting up a private meeting with Faith Johnson, an attorney introduced by Diana. Faith specialized in high-stakes divorces, particularly those involving hidden assets or suspicious spousal conduct. Her small, unmarked office in a tall downtown building spoke of discreet professionalism. He arrived early, stepping into a cozy waiting room with muted lamps. Faith greeted him with a firm handshake, guiding him to a glass-walled conference area overlooking a slice of cityscape. Her expression remained calm, yet perceptive, as Stephen described the situation. A likely affair, potential financial misconduct, and his desire not only to separate from Olivia, but to ensure she faced consequences. After patiently listening, Faith pursed her lips. So you want more than a simple dissolution of marriage. You want to protect your assets and possibly expose her wrongdoing? Stephen nodded. Correct. She's lying, probably stealing from our shared funds and colluding with this Dennis York. I want to ensure I'm not left paying her debts. Faith tapped a pen against her notepad. I can draft a stealth divorce filing, meaning we file quietly, serve her at a moment that catches her off guard. If I can get a handle on the shady finances, we might do an immediate freeze on joint accounts. Stephen's eyes hardened. Yes, that's what I want. Freeze everything she can access. Faith raised an eyebrow. You realize that will escalate tensions. She might react badly. Stephen exhaled. I'm prepared. She already left me emotionally. She's just too arrogant to think I can fight back. Satisfied, Faith nodded. Let's do it. Bring me any documentation, bank statements, anything linking her to suspicious purchases. We'll build a case for adultery, maybe fraud. If she's entangled in a Ponzi scheme, even better for us. Stephen almost smiled at the ruthless spark in Faith's eyes. Finally, an ally who sees the necessity of a strong offensive. That afternoon, Stephen planned a cunning step. He quietly transferred a chunk of savings into a newly opened account Faith had helped him set up in a separate bank. He changed passwords on all joint subscription services, moved a portion of his paycheck direct deposits to the new account. He wasn't trying to bankrupt Olivia. He just wanted her powerless if she attempted to drain their finances to run off with Dennis. While scanning statements, Stephen's frustration rose at seeing consistent small cash withdrawals Olivia had labeled supplies. It was obvious she was funneling money into her personal escape fund, though he didn't know the final sum. Before leaving for home, he typed a quick text to Jonathan. Keep me posted on any new condo visits. We'll soon pull the trigger. Later, Stephen convened a small group at a discreet lounge bar. Jonathan Parker, Dennis Wood, his real best friend, and Faith. Diana was invited but had scheduling conflicts she promised to assist behind the scenes if needed. They settled into a corner booth with low lighting, the hum of soft jazz in the background. Dennis Wood looked uneasy. I can't believe she'd do this, man. I always liked Olivia, but if she's messing around with some con artist, you gotta do what you gotta do. Stephen nodded, sipping a non-alcoholic drink. I appreciate your support. Sorry to bring you into this. Dennis clapped his shoulder. No need to apologize. We're friends. I can help if you need me, just tell me how. Jonathan laid out a brief update. We have plenty of audio recordings indicating a deeper relationship. Talk of a future with DY. That plus the financial record suggests she's fully invested in his business. The next step is exposing them both, or at least scaring them with the threat of it. Faith chimed in. Yes, if you truly want to ruin them, we can leak info to local business circles or press, or even refer it to investigators if York's finances are indeed criminal. But let's stage it carefully so that you come out looking clean. The last thing you want is to appear vengeful in the public eye. People can be unpredictable. Stephen nodded slowly, swirling the ice in his glass. I've never wanted public drama, but if that's what it takes, I'll do it. I'd rather orchestrate something more controlled, a reveal that puts them in the spotlight at exactly the right moment. Faith's lips curved in a slight smile. Any ideas? He exhaled. Actually, yes. We have an anniversary date coming in a couple of months. I could arrange a big celebration under the guise of reconciling or reaffirming vows. Invite all important people from her circle. She'll be caught off guard. Then we reveal the affair. Let her watch everything crumble in front of her colleagues, family, potential clients. Meanwhile, simultaneously, we serve her the divorce papers. Dennis Wood whistled softly. That's bold, man. Jonathan smirked. Bold, but effective. She'd never see it coming if you act normal until then. Faith folded her arms, considering. And we can also time the asset freeze. Maybe even have law enforcement if we push leads about York's fraud. That'd be an unforgettable fiasco. Stephen nodded, calm determination in his eyes. Let's do it. The next few days, Stephen forced himself to act as though everything was normal. He invited Olivia to dinner, praised her for her hard work, and feigned ignorance about late-night messages or sudden errands. At first, she seemed suspicious of his newfound politeness. Eventually, though, she relaxed, presumably concluding he was clueless. Meanwhile, Faith prepped the stealth divorce, drafting property splits heavily favoring Stephen. She also discovered a small property Stephen's grandmother had willed him out of state. Faith recommended transferring part ownership to that property, so Olivia had no claim if she tried to prove it was communal. Stephen's tasks included forging a friendly front. He told Olivia about a great idea for celebrating their anniversary. She listened with mild skepticism, then brightened. "We used to throw big parties for birthdays, remember? It could be nice to reconnect with friends." He forced an affectionate smile. "Exactly. Maybe we'll do it at a swanky rooftop lounge?" She shrugged, eyes flicking away. "Sure, if we can afford it." She probably thought he doesn't realize I've been siphoning money. Inside, Stephen's heart twisted at how comfortable she was lying to him. Outwardly, he just said, "Trust me. I'll handle expenses. You just show up and look stunning." Jonathan found a critical weakness in Dennis York's professional facade. The man had multiple shell companies, some of which had shaky investor deals. Jonathan suspected a Ponzi-like structure. A single leak to the right investigative agency might cause a meltdown. Stephen told Jonathan, "Let's hold that as a final blow. If we drop it too soon, he'll panic and skip town. We want him present at the anniversary party." They orchestrated a trap by feeding a rumor that Stephen's construction firm might do a massive interior remodel, needing a financial partner. Jonathan spread whispers at a local business club. "Stephen's searching for an investor to pump in big money." Dennis York, always on the lookout, swallowed the bait wholeheartedly. He approached Olivia about pushing Stephen for inside info or persuading him to sign a partnership. One evening, Olivia carefully suggested to Stephen, "You've been talking about expansion. I might know a financial consultant with wealthy contacts. Maybe you two should talk." Stephen's chest burned with irony. She was pimping out a contact who was effectively her lover. He masked his disgust with a thoughtful expression. "Could be interesting. We'll talk. Set up a dinner, maybe." She smiled, relief in her eyes. She was clueless that Stephen had manipulated her every step. While preparing for dinner, Stephen found a new text on Olivia's phone when she left it briefly on the table. She stepped away to fix her hair, and the phone lit up with the name Dennis Y. The message preview read, "He suspects nothing. Let's finalize next steps, babe." Stephen's pulse thundered. So Dennis apparently believed Stephen was oblivious, and the man was calling Olivia, "Babe. You think you're safe?" "We'll see." He tapped the phone's power button to lock it again, not wanting to leave traces of reading it. He smoothed his shirt, reminding himself to keep the mask on. Moments later, Olivia rushed out, phone back in hand. "Ready to go?" He offered a benign smile. "Absolutely. Let's have a nice evening." Dinner turned out subdued. He took her to a small bistro. The candlelit ambiance might have felt romantic under normal circumstances, but Stephen felt no warmth. He only wore the facade. Mid-meal, Olivia half apologized. "I'm sorry I've been so busy lately. My schedule's insane, but I appreciate you not prying." He gave a gentle nod, feigning concern. "I know how wedding planning can be. Let me know if I can lighten your load." She patted his hand lightly. "You're sweet." The forced nature of her affection stung him. Stephen wanted to lash out. "Sweet? You think I'm a fool?" But he suppressed it, glancing around at other couples who probably assumed they were a happy pair. Let them assume, he thought. Soon everyone will see the truth. At Jonathan's suggestion, Stephen began dropping subtle hints about addresses or restaurants he suspected Olivia had visited with Dennis. Over breakfast, he'd casually mention, "A coworker told me about the new steakhouse near the harbor. We should try it sometime." He watched Olivia's face pale momentarily. Then she forced a smile. "Sure, maybe next month." In the car, he'd mention, "Diana said Maple Estates is hosting big events. Surprised you're not working there." Olivia fidgeted, offering no direct answer. Each time, Stephen's calm approach freaked her out a bit more. Jonathan relayed that from recorded calls. Olivia told Dennis, "I'm worried Stephen's on to me." Dennis apparently laughed it off. "He's too gullible." Stephen smirked bitterly upon hearing that. Keep thinking that. As the weeks ticked closer to the anniversary party, Stephen made sure to send formal invites to family, close friends, and professional contacts. Everyone was told, "We're celebrating how far we've come, reaffirming our vows in a small ceremony." The excitement among the older relatives was palpable. They thought it was a romantic renewal. Some younger friends teased Stephen for being so sappy, but he played along, shrugging, "I'm a romantic at heart." Meanwhile, Olivia clung to a superficial excitement. She told him she'd pick out a gorgeous dress. He overheard her on the phone with Dennis, confiding in a low whisper that she might put on a big show, then slip away with you afterward. He nearly ground his teeth, hearing that from the Bug's audio. She planned to rub the vow renewal in his face, then vanish with Dennis? Unbelievable. Jonathan phoned Stephen late one night, voice tense. "I've got enough proof on Dennis York's fraudulent deals to bury him. Faith can coordinate with police to have detectives ready. We can time this with your party if you want maximum impact." Stephen stared at the city lights outside his bedroom window, heart cold. "Yes, do it. I want them both blindsided. We'll show the affair and the financial crimes all at once. Let me finalize the plan with Faith." In bed, he saw Olivia's figure asleep, arms folded around a pillow, face turned away. Soon she'd wake up to a reality where all her illusions were shattered. Stephen couldn't quell a flicker of sadness, but the sense of betrayal burned deeper. He whispered under his breath, "You forced my hand, Olivia. I hope it was worth it." Chapter 4. Despite the tension boiling beneath the surface, the days leading up to the anniversary event were oddly peaceful. Stephen maintained a deceptively affectionate front. Olivia responded with moments of guilt-laced kindness, perhaps sensing his generosity and growing uncertain. She occasionally tried to gauge if he suspected anything. One night, while flipping channels on the couch, she half murmured, "We haven't really had a serious talk in a while about us." Stephen turned toward her, controlling the bitterness in his chest. "We're both busy, but we'll have a good talk soon. We're about to celebrate a special milestone. Maybe we'll feel more connected then." She nodded, biting her lip. "Yes, maybe." Her eyes flicked away, phone in hand as usual. A subdued sadness flitted across her face, but Stephen didn't dwell on it. He told himself she'd chosen her path. Jonathan's final data drop arrived. Clear photos of Olivia and Dennis at the harbor condo, arms wrapped around each other. Time-stamped nights from the last 3 weeks. Audio transcripts of them referencing Stephen as clueless, discussing potential future travel. Confirmation of Dennis York's shady financial dealings. Meanwhile, Faith refined the divorce paperwork, labeling it a straightforward adultery plus financial impropriety case. She also had an asset freeze motion ready to file the moment Stephen gave the word. Stephen reviewed the evidence late into the night, feeling a tightness in his chest. The emotional blow was still raw, seeing his wife's intimacy with another man. But his anger overshadowed the pain. Once the shock wore off, a grim resolve replaced it. He flicked through the photos, ignoring the bile rising in his throat. "She won't see me break," he thought. "She'll see me triumph." Olivia's parents, Paul and Marjorie, arrived from out of town a few days before the event. They were delighted about the vow renewal, joking about how 8 years is just the start. Stephen felt a pang of guilt. These were good people. They had no clue their daughter had done something so appalling. He greeted them warmly, even as his internal monologue roiled. Olivia put on a radiant hostess act, hugging them, showing the tidy guest room and beaming about the upcoming party. Stephen suspected she just wanted her parents' cover, maybe to stave off any immediate suspicion that something was amiss. One evening, when Olivia stepped away to take a call, Marjorie confided in Stephen, "She's never looked more excited, dear. Thank you for making her happy." The older woman's eyes shone with motherly pride. Stephen swallowed the hard lump in his throat. If only you knew. "I'm trying my best," he answered softly. Dennis York arrived in town the day before the party, checking into a hotel under the guise of being a potential investor. Stephen had invited him personally, playing the role of an open-minded host. Over the phone, Stephen feigned interest in forging a partnership for a large expansion in his construction business. Dennis bit eagerly, boasting of capital and connections. Late that afternoon, Stephen orchestrated a brief meeting with Dennis at a high-end lounge, with Olivia in attendance. Stephen wore an amiable smile, shaking Dennis's hand. The man was well-groomed, confident, mid-40s, exuding a sense of self-importance. "So you're the man with the finances," Stephen said with mild humor. "I've heard good things. Thanks for coming to our anniversary tomorrow." Dennis gave a slick grin. "Wouldn't miss it. I also look forward to discussing your potential expansion. Maybe we can talk details in a more private setting?" He flashed a quick glance at Olivia, who smirked as if holding a private joke. Stephen's gut churned, but he only nodded. "Sure. After tomorrow's event, we'll find time to talk." "We'll talk, all right." Olivia, standing beside them, placed a hand lightly on Dennis's arm, directing him to a corner booth. She introduced him to a few new acquaintances drifting around. Meanwhile, Stephen discreetly watched their body language. She was comfortable with him, too comfortable. She forgot to mask her closeness in front of her husband. Jonathan, posing as a random lounge patron, filmed from a distance. Faith had given him the nod to gather any final scenes that might reinforce the affair's public unveiling. Stephen only cast them a glance of acknowledgement, continuing his ruse. "Dennis, I'll let you enjoy the rest of your evening. I have last-minute party details to handle," Stephen said politely. "But be sure to come tomorrow. We'll have a great time." Dennis gave a half smile, obviously concluding Stephen was naive. "Count on it," he said. The morning of the anniversary party dawned bright. Stephen woke early, triple-checking everything. Faith confirmed law enforcement stood by for the go signal, armed with evidence of Dennis's Ponzi-like scheme. The rooftop lounge was booked. Stephen had arranged a big screen projector. Jonathan had curated a slideshow, images, texts, and audio clips, all cued to play at Stephen's command. Olivia, dressed in a satin silver gown, looking breathtaking. She peeked around for Stephen's reaction, maybe anxious or guilty. He donned a tailored suit, giving her a gentle compliment. "You look stunning." Her eyes flickered with conflicting emotions. For a moment, he thought he glimpsed remorse, but she pressed a cheerful facade, taking his arm. Her parents, equally dressed up, fussed with excitement. Friends texted Stephen about their arrival times. Everything was set, the stage for the ultimate reveal. By early evening, the rooftop lounge glowed with festive lights. Tall windows overlooked the city skyline. Guests sipped champagne, chatting. Stephen circulated, greeting acquaintances, shaking hands. Olivia clung to her mother's side, occasionally eyeing Stephen with a cautious expression. Within an hour, the place was abuzz. Faith, Jonathan, Dennis Wood, and even some of Stephen's construction colleagues were present. Olivia's network was their friends, extended family, and event planner peers. Some recognized Dennis York, who arrived in a flashy suit, an air of arrogance around him. Stephen's father, an older man with an easy laugh, cornered Stephen. "You too sure about renewing vows so young? Usually folks wait for 10 or 20 years. Stephen forced a grin. We're just eager to reaffirm our bond." The irony nearly made him choke. At last, Stephen gently tapped a fork against a glass, calling for attention. Olivia stood near him, forced a radiant smile for the crowd. People hushed, forming a semicircle around them. Stephen felt his pulse pound. "This is it. Remember to be calm. Show no cracks." He gazed around with feigned warmth. "Thank you all for joining us tonight. This marks a special milestone, 8 years of marriage." Murmurs of approval, applause. He continued, voice steady. "But I also want to celebrate something else. Honesty and loyalty, qualities that define true love." He noticed Olivia stiffen, glancing at him sideways. Dennis York sipped his drink, standing near the side, unsuspecting. "Over the past weeks, I felt the importance of truth more than ever," Stephen said, flicking a hidden remote in his pocket. The lounge lights dimmed, and the projector lit up the large screen. The first image appeared, a date-stamped photo of Olivia and Dennis stepping out of the Shoreline Suites, arms linked. A hush fell over the crowd, a few gasps. Olivia's eyes went wide with terror. Stephen forced his voice to remain neutral. "I'd like to show everyone something that, unfortunately, has overshadowed this marriage." Flick, the next image, them kissing by the condo door. Another flick. Phone transcripts referencing "risking everything for your love." Someone in the crowd exclaimed, "Oh my God!" Olivia lunged forward. "Stephen, turn this off!" She fumbled with the projector stand, but Jonathan calmly stepped in, stopping her from yanking cables. Stephen's tone turned colder. "I appreciate you all coming to witness the truth. I discovered that my wife, Olivia, has been carrying on an affair with Mr. Dennis York." He pointed at Dennis, who paled, dropping his glass. The lounge erupted in stunned conversation. Olivia's parents looked horrified, her mother nearly fainting. Stephen's father looked stunned but outraged. Olivia shrieked, "Stop, Stephen, please! We can talk about this later." "Not here." He shook his head, holding up a stack of papers. "You humiliated me for months. Everyone should see who you really are and who your partner is." As if on cue, Faith signaled law enforcement officers to step forward, brandishing evidence of Dennis's financial fraud. The murmur in the crowd soared to an uproar. A detective addressed Dennis. "Mr. York, we have questions about your business dealings. We need you to come with us." Dennis, now a cornered animal, tried to protest. "This is a mistake. I haven't done anything wrong." He shot a venomous glare at Olivia, who sobbed openly, cheeks stained with tears. Meanwhile, Stephen declared in a cool voice, "I'm also finalizing our divorce, Olivia. You'll find the papers in your email, and I have copies right here." He handed them to her trembling hands. Olivia stumbled, sobbing, trying to protest or apologize. I was coerced. I didn't. Stephen, I'm sorry." He stepped back, refusing to meet her gaze. "We have no marriage left. You can blame yourself or your lover. I don't care." Guests turned in shock, some trying to console Olivia, others eyeing Stephen with pity or approval. The police cuffed Dennis, reading him his rights. He spat curses at Olivia, calling her manipulative. She collapsed to her knees, crying. A hush fell once more, heavier than any they'd felt before. Stephen tossed the microphone aside, walking out of the lounge, leaving behind the chaos he had meticulously orchestrated. Jonathan followed, pressing a hand to Stephen's shoulder. "You all right?" Stephen's lips pressed tight. "I will be." Chapter 5. Stephen walked briskly out of the rooftop lounge, the echo of Olivia's sobs trailing behind him. The autumn air struck him hard as he stepped onto the sidewalk. Night had fallen completely, and the passing headlights glinted across the tears gathering in his own eyes, tears he'd stubbornly refused to shed in front of everyone else. Standing there, he experienced a moment of shocking numbness. He felt Jonathan come up beside him, placing a steadying hand on his shoulder. This was the friend he'd relied on to gather so much evidence. Now, Jonathan's voice was quiet as he said, "Look at me, Stephen. Are you all right?" Stephen inhaled a ragged breath, forcing composure. "I will be," he replied, repeating the promise he had made minutes ago. But inside, a swarm of contradictory emotions warred within him. A sense of triumph over humiliating Olivia and Dennis, yet also heartbreak that 8 years of marriage had come to this. In the corner of his vision, he saw the reflection of the lounge door. Olivia was just inside, surrounded by onlookers. Some stared at him through the glass, while others tried to comfort her. He couldn't bring himself to re-enter that space of betrayal and pity. Not now. Taking a step forward, he turned to Jonathan and asked softly, "Can you make sure Faith is wrapping up the legal aftermath?" "I'm done here." Jonathan nodded. "Of course. If anyone tries to chase you down, I'll run interference. Take care, man." Without another word, Stephen began walking up the block. No plan in mind, just the urgent need to escape the swirling chaos of the rooftop lounge. Each footstep reverberated in his chest, matching the pounding of his heart. The crisp night air carried the faint hum of distant traffic, and the glow of city lights blurred along the edges of his vision. A taxi idled at the curb. Stephen almost raised an arm to hail it, but paused, deciding he wanted to walk. After so many weeks of meticulously planning this revenge, he needed a moment to let the final blow sink in. He was free, yet a hollow ache spread through his core. It's over. And I won. Didn't I? He wasn't sure how long he walked. 10 minutes. Maybe 30. Eventually, he found himself in front of a small coffee shop with dim lights glowing from within. The open late sign flickered. He glanced through the window and saw only a couple of patrons. Something about the quiet atmosphere drew him in. He pushed open the glass door and stepped inside. The warm sense of espresso and pastries enveloped him. A single barista with tired eyes looked up from wiping a table. "We're still open for, about another hour, if you need something," she said. "Just coffee. Plain," Stephen answered, voice dull. He realized he was still wearing his formal suit, slightly rumpled from the confrontation. The barista offered no comment, but her gaze flickered with curiosity at his disheveled tie and grave expression. Stephen carried his coffee cup to a corner booth. The place was so silent he could hear the gentle hum of the milk steamer behind the counter. As he sank onto the seat, memories of the evening's fiasco flooded back. The projector images, Olivia's tears, Dennis being handcuffed. Stephen gulped coffee, hoping the bitter warmth might chase away the gnawing emptiness. He wondered about Olivia's parents, Paul and Marjorie, how they must be feeling. In the midst of the meltdown, they likely discovered their daughter's hidden affair was no rumor. He recalled Marjorie's faint cry, "Olivia, how could you?" and Paul's apologetic glance in Stephen's direction. They were decent people, caught in the crossfire of a revelation that shattered illusions. With a dry laugh, Stephen realized he was free to never see them again, if he so chose. The divorce process would sort out official ties, or if they wanted to maintain contact, that would be on his terms. Another wave of conflicting emotions rolled through him. He had cared about them, about the family he once thought was his. But no, he told himself, that life is done. I can't cling to it. The coffee shop door chimed, and Stephen peered over his shoulder, half expecting to see Jonathan or maybe Faith. Instead, it was a random couple stepping in from the cold. He turned back, inhaling the coffee's fragrance. The barista approached, clearing her throat politely. "I'm about to close the pastry case. You good here? Or want something sweet?" He gazed at the half-empty display. "No thanks." His voice sounded distant to his own ears. The barista nodded and quietly returned behind the counter. Not long after he settled, Stephen heard his phone vibrate. He glanced at the screen. Faith's name. Possibly an update. He nearly let it go to voicemail, but after the second buzz, he accepted the call, placing it to his ear. "Yes?" Faith spoke in a hushed tone. "Just letting you know everything's wrapped up at the lounge. The police took Dennis into custody, read him his charges. It's quite a scandal. As for Olivia, she's been escorted out by some of her relatives. She's in tears, but that's expected." He closed his eyes. "Any repercussions for me?" "Not at all. People are shocked by her affair, by the evidence you displayed. Some might say it was a brutal reveal, but you didn't break any laws, and the lounge management was warned we'd do a private slideshow. They only realized the content mid-presentation, but it's done now." He exhaled, recalling how he secured permission from the lounge for a personal vow renewal video. The staff never dreamed it would be a cheating expose. "And the divorce filing?" "I filed it half an hour ago. Hard copies were handed to Olivia," Faith replied. "She's humiliated, but there's not much she can do about that. I included a claim for asset protection requesting that freeze. Expect a hearing in a week or so, but given our evidence, I doubt the judge will refuse." Stephen nodded to himself, tapping a finger on the coffee cup. "Good." After a moment's hesitation, Faith asked gently, "How are you holding up, Stephen?" I'll manage," he murmured. Then he changed the subject. "Thanks for everything, Faith. I'll regroup tomorrow. Let's talk in your office Monday, discuss next steps." "That works. Take care of yourself tonight." Ending the call, he stared at his phone. 10 months of marriage meltdown compressed into one night, culminating in an epic confrontation. The revenge was thorough. He realized part of him had expected a wave of satisfaction, but mostly he felt drained. Maybe it'll sink in tomorrow, he thought. He scrolled through unanswered messages. Jonathan had texted, "Went smoothly. Call if you need anything." Dennis Wood's text read, "I can't believe all that just happened. Let me know if you want to talk. Proud of you for standing up for yourself." Another from an unknown number said, "Stephen, it's Diana. Heard about the reveal. I hope you're okay. Olivia messed up big time, but you didn't deserve this." He typed a quick thanks to Dennis Wood, then stared at Diana's message. He typed an equally brief reply. "Appreciate it. I'm fine." A wave of exhaustion pressed down on him. The adrenaline was wearing off. A subdued beep signaled a new text, this time from a number labeled Olivia's phone. He stared at the preview, uncertain if he wanted to see it. Finally, he tapped. "Stephen, I'm so sorry I never meant for it to get this horrible. Please talk to me. I'm desperate. My parents are furious. I have nowhere to go. I know you hate me, but..." He couldn't read further. He locked the screen. The barista gave him a pointed look, indicating the shop was closing in 5 minutes. Sighing, he finished off the last lukewarm dregs of coffee. Then he rose, dropped a tip in the jar, and left. The next morning, Stephen found himself back in the comfortable confines of Dennis Wood's living room. Dennis had insisted he crash there for the weekend, saying, "No reason to be alone in that house with memories." Indeed, Stephen's marital home felt tainted, Although Olivia was presumably no longer living there, he didn't relish waking up in the bed they'd once shared. Seated in a recliner, Stephen nursed a glass of water. He'd showered, changed into casual clothes borrowed from Dennis. Yet inside, a swirl of leftover tension smoldered. The early sunlight filtering through the windows did nothing to ease the ache behind his eyes. Dennis stepped in, a concerned expression on his face. "You want any breakfast? I can scramble eggs or something." Stephen rubbed his temples. "Not hungry. Thanks, though." Dennis sighed, settling on a nearby sofa. "Man, last night was insane. I can't imagine how messed up you feel." A humorless chuckle escaped Stephen's lips. "I engineered it, so I can't complain about the show." Then, in a softer tone, he admitted, "It's all hitting me now. The finality." "I get that," Dennis said quietly. "I never liked how Olivia was acting, but I didn't suspect, well, not to this extent." He cleared his throat. "You did everything you could to salvage your pride. I'm proud of you for that." Stephen's gaze dropped to the carpet. "I appreciate it. I guess, yeah. No regrets about exposing them. But it feels hollow. I wanted to see her face broken with guilt, but seeing her actually sob, and her parents losing it, it wasn't as satisfying as I thought." Dennis nodded, empathy in his eyes. "You're human. You loved her once. Hurting her, even if she deserved it, might not feel purely good." They sat in reflective silence for a moment. Outside, a bird chirped. Stephen realized how rare it was to notice such a small sound in the city. He welcomed the distraction. Eventually, he asked, "So, how's your schedule today? I need to figure out my next steps." "You're welcome to stay here as long as you want. Or if you want me to come with you to the house and help gather some of your belongings, we can do that," Dennis offered. Stephen exhaled, thinking about the half-empty marital home. The idea of rummaging through personal items, deciding what to keep, was daunting. "Yeah, maybe tomorrow. I'll talk to Faith about the property division." Late in the afternoon, Jonathan swung by Dennis Wood's place. The three men convened in the living room, forging an unspoken alliance that had guided Stephen's plan to completion. Jonathan gave a quick grin. "I see you're alive and not in jail for assault or anything." "That's good." Stephen shook Jonathan's hand. "All thanks to your help. I owe you." Jonathan shrugged. "Just doing my job as a PI. But honestly, I'm relieved you didn't physically confront Dennis York in a rage. A lot of betrayed spouses want that. You stuck to the plan, kudos." Stephen's jaw clenched at the memory of seeing Dennis's smug face. He might have swung a punch if the environment had been different. "I'd prefer legal humiliation over jail. He's in custody now, right?" "Yep," Jonathan confirmed. "He might post bail eventually, but his records are messy. The police discovered more than we even had. I suspect his assets are frozen. Your attorney Faith presumably will coordinate with them if any civil suits come up." As for Olivia, he trailed off. Stephen's pulse twitched. "Yeah, about her. Any updates?" Jonathan looked hesitant. "She left with her parents last night. They took her to some relative's place. Word is she's practically catatonic. Tried calling you multiple times, evidently." Stephen stood, pacing a short distance. "I know. She texted me. I didn't respond." He let out a sigh, uncertain if he wanted to see or speak with her yet. "She burned this bridge." Jonathan nodded. "Understood. Just letting you know so you're not caught off guard. She might attempt an apology or some emotional tactic to salvage even a shred of dignity." Dennis rubbed his chin. "You think she's capable of more manipulation?" "Possibly," Jonathan said with a shrug. "But given the extent of her exposure, I suspect she's more in damage control mode, not cunning. Still, never underestimate someone cornered." Stephen sank onto the recliner, feeling physically and mentally drained. If she tries anything, I'll handle it. Right now, I want to focus on the legal side. The emotional side, well, I'll deal with that in time. Despite wanting to keep a firm stance of ignoring Olivia, Stephen found his phone buzzing incessantly that night. At least 4 messages from her popped up, each more desperate. They ranged from half-apologetic pleas to blaming him for humiliating her publicly. The final text read, "You've destroyed everything. How could you do this so cruelly? We could have settled it privately." He read them, jaw tightening. The audacity. She was still deflecting blame, calling his reveal cruel, as if her months of lying were mild in comparison. Unbelievable, he thought, tossing the phone on the side table. He refused to dignify her with a response. Half an hour later, the phone chimed again. This time, a voice message. He hesitated, but eventually pressed play. Her trembling voice poured out, raw with emotion. "Stephen, I know you hate me, but I never wanted it to be this way. I messed up, yes. The money, the affair, Dennis, I was in over my head. If I could take it back, I would. Everything you did last night, it gutted me. We could have parted ways without that spectacle, but you gave me no mercy. Please, just let me talk to you. Let me explain how it all started. Let me—" He cut it off. Heart pounding. A wave of bitterness rose in his chest. She wanted to talk now after denying him honesty for so long. Shaking his head, he deleted the message. "Too late, Olivia. Way too late." News of the fiasco quickly spread in local circles. Some people texted Stephen, expressing shock or quiet admiration for how he exposed the betrayal. Others simply apologized for not realizing what Olivia had been doing. Some of Stephen's construction colleagues, especially those who had attended the party, looked at him with newfound respect, as if they never thought he had such grit. To his mild surprise, the fiasco garnered him a small wave of sympathy. Usually in divorces, people remain neutral or might blame the public confrontation. But folks recognized the evidence, the months of deception, the blatant financial wrongdoing, and Dennis's criminal fiasco. It painted Stephen as the wounded spouse who'd methodically taken back control. One day post-event, while Stephen was in Dennis Wood's living room sifting through documents, the phone rang from an unknown number. The voice that followed was Faith's, though she wasn't using her usual office line. "Stephen, hi. Quick note. The local press has some coverage about Dennis York's arrest. They mention a wedding planner tangentially, but no names. You might dodge full-blown tabloids, but be prepared for minor gossip." Stephen rubbed his temples. "Fine, as long as I'm not dragged through media mud." He paused. "Thank you, Faith. Also," she continued, "Olivia's lawyer tried to contact me. She's not official counsel yet, but apparently Olivia's searching for representation. They want a meeting about possible settlement. I told them we have no interest in meeting until after the hearing on the asset freeze." He clenched his jaw. "Right. No reason to humor them. Not until we see how the freeze goes." Returning to the marital home was the next big hurdle. Stephen delayed it for 2 days, bunking at Dennis Wood's place, but eventually, certain tasks demanded he go back. He needed important personal files, clothes, and to evaluate whether he wanted to stay or sell. The home was in his name mostly, so he had the advantage. But the prospect of stepping into rooms haunted by memories weighed heavily on him. He roped Dennis Wood into accompanying him for moral support. The drive there was quiet, tensions simmering. When they pulled into the driveway, Stephen stared at the familiar front porch. The potted plants looked half-withered, as though neglected. Inside, the stale air greeted them. The living room showed small signs of disorder, some cushions out of place, random items strewn about, possibly from Olivia's hasty departure. Stephen's eyes settled on the couch where they used to watch movies, a swirl of nostalgic ache pricking his chest. He inhaled sharply, bracing himself. "Let's do this," he muttered. They moved systematically. Dennis offered to gather Stephen's clothes from the bedroom while Stephen tackled the office. Each item reminded him of how entwined their lives once were, framed photos from vacations, the wedding album on a shelf. He set aside personal pictures that held any meaning to him alone, maybe his family or old childhood snapshots. The rest, he'd decide on later. In the bedroom closet, he found some of Olivia's clothes still hanging. He stared at them, feeling a pang. Perhaps she planned to return someday, or she'd simply left them out of shock. No, she's gone. Good. He closed the closet door, heart pounding. By late afternoon, they had packed 2 large suitcases of Stephen's essentials, plus a box of personal documents. On the desk, Stephen spotted the hotel key card he'd discovered weeks ago, the first piece of tangible evidence. He picked it up, recalling the swirl of suspicion that day. How far we've come from that initial doubt. With a grim scoff, he dropped the card in a trash bin. As they prepared to leave, Dennis Wood paused near the fireplace mantel. A single wedding photo still stood, capturing Olivia in her radiant bridal gown and Stephen in his tux, both smiling with genuine joy from years past. Dennis asked softly, "Want me to box this or trash it?" Stephen stared at the photo, arms crossed. He recalled that day the sincerity of the vow he once believed unbreakable. After a long silence, he answered, "Box it for now. Maybe I'll burn it eventually, but not yet." His voice was hoarse. Dennis nodded, gently wrapping the frame in newspaper. They loaded everything into the trunk. Before locking up, Stephen took one last look at the house interior. It felt empty and lifeless. "I'll decide soon if I want to keep it or sell it." For the moment, he shut the door, turned the key, and walked away. Chapter 6. That evening, Stephen found himself alone in Dennis Wood's guest room, sorting through the box of personal files. He paused upon uncovering a small stack of old letters from his mother, various warranties for household appliances, random utility bills, some with Olivia's signature. Each piece of paper felt like a memento from a life that was no longer his. A text from Faith interrupted his rummaging. "Need you in my office tomorrow at 9 a.m. The judge gave us a quick hearing date on the freeze. Also, potential date for spousal support arguments. Let's prep." Spousal support. The notion that Olivia might demand alimony despite her affair and wrongdoing churned Stephen's stomach. But he recalled Faith's confidence about their strong case. He typed a quick acknowledgement. "I'll be there." Sighing, he set the bills aside. Part of him longed to sleep and forget everything, but rest never came easy these days. He paced the small room, phone in hand. A gentle rap sounded at the door. Dennis peered in. "You good, man?" Stephen gave a shrug. "As good as I can be. Thanks for letting me crash here." "Always, bud," Dennis said. He then ventured, "Want to watch some mindless action movie or a game? Might help distract you." After a beat, Stephen nodded. "Yeah, let's do that." The next morning, Stephen arrived at Faith's law firm, a modest suite on the 12th floor of a downtown high-rise. The receptionist offered him coffee and directed him to a small conference room. Faith soon joined him, her expression crisp and businesslike. She wore a slate-gray blazer carrying a stack of folders. "Morning, Stephen," she greeted, shutting the door behind her. "We have a lot to cover. The judge set an expedited hearing for the asset freeze in 3 days. That's incredibly fast, which might be good for us, but we need to be well prepared." He straightened in his chair. "Is Olivia even capable of countering it? I mean, we have proof she's been siphoning funds." Faith nodded. "Yes, we do, But from a purely legal standpoint, she can argue for partial access if she claims she lacks resources or that some of her wedding planning revenue belongs to her. We'll push back with evidence that she can't be trusted, given the affair and her suspicious transactions. The judge might freeze nearly everything, then dole out limited spousal support if needed. But we're aiming to keep it minimal. Stephen exhaled. Fine. I just don't want her draining more from me. Faith opened a folder. She's also apparently retained a lawyer named Miriam Clark. I know Clark by reputation aggressive, but not necessarily cunning. Probably pushing for a quick settlement to avoid humiliating public trials. That might align with our interests, ironically. He frowned. Would that mean I lose my chance to hammer her further? Legally, we can press the adultery claim, but remember, you already had your big public reveal. If you want to finalize the divorce swiftly, we might use settlement negotiations to block her from demanding support. The more drama in court, the longer it drags out. Stephen considered that. I see. I'm not opposed to a swift resolution, as long as I keep my assets. She forfeited her moral high ground. Exactly. Let's compile everything. We'll highlight the explicit affair evidence, the stealth bank transfers, plus your financial statements showing you contributed the majority to the household. That's the trifecta. I'll also mention how she plotted with Dennis York, who's now indicted on fraud charges. He gave a grim smile. Hopefully the judge sees reason. After the meeting, Faith led Stephen to a corner office in the same suite where two paralegals helped him sign affidavits. He recounted the timeline of discovering Olivia's affair, the financial irregularities, and the grand reveal. Each signature felt like another nail in the coffin of his marriage. One paralegal, a young man with sympathetic eyes, said quietly, "I'm sorry you're going through this. I saw the news about Dennis York's arrest. People are calling you a hero for exposing him." Stephen gave a tight nod. "Thanks. I'm no hero. Just a husband who refused to be cheated and ruined." Once done, Faith walked him out to the hallway. "We'll see you at the courthouse. Try to stay calm if Olivia shows up. Let me do the talking. Understood?" He gave a mild shrug. "I won't blow up at her. I said everything I needed to say. She's the one who might cause drama." Faith offered a slight smirk. "Then let her. It'll only help our cause if she's unreasonable." They shook hands, and Stephen headed for the elevator, shoulders heavy with the prospect of another confrontation in court. But at least it was purely legal now, not a shocking slideshow. He told himself, "I can handle this." Over the next 2 days, Stephen maintained a low profile. He visited his construction site a few times, reasserting himself in day-to-day operations. Some co-workers regarded him with cautious respect, not prying into his personal affairs. They simply followed his instructions on project tasks. He appreciated the normalcy, at least at work. Everything was stable. During a lunch break, he stepped into the site trailer to finalize an invoice with a supplier. As he was finishing, his phone buzzed with an unfamiliar local number. Warily, he answered, half expecting more drama. A woman's voice came on. "Hello, Mr. Fielding. This is Miriam Clark, representing Olivia." He stiffened. "Yes, Ms. Clark." She took a measured breath. "I'm calling to see if you'd consider a preliminary meeting outside of court to discuss a possible arrangement. My client expresses interest in an amicable resolution." Stephen snorted inwardly. Amicable after that fiasco? But he kept his tone civil. "Faith Johnson is my attorney. You can coordinate with her." Clark insisted. "Yes, I have. She's open-minded, but said it's ultimately your decision. I'd like us to avoid further public spectacle. Perhaps we can talk settlement terms, division of property, potential spousal support before the hearing. If we find common ground, we save everyone time." He rubbed his temple. "My stance is that Olivia forfeited claims to spousal support." She cheated. She's the reason for the divorce, and the finances she stole might be substantial. I doubt I'll budge. Clark paused. I understand. But sometimes it's better to compromise a little than fight a protracted legal war. If you're open, we can meet in my office or a neutral location. Stephen exhaled. I'll think it over with Faith. Have your office set something up with her. That's all. Then he hung up. The gall of Olivia's new lawyer to talk about compromise. Did Olivia truly think he'd pay her a dime? The memory of her meltdown at the party flitted across his mind. He couldn't picture amicable. But he was also pragmatic. If a small concession ended the matter swiftly, maybe that was worth it. He resolved to let Faith handle the details. Court day arrived for the asset freeze hearing. Stephen, dressed in a sober navy suit, steel gray tie, and polished shoes, professional but not flashy. Arriving early at the courthouse, he found Faith waiting near the steps. She gave a crisp nod. Ready? He inhaled. Yeah. The building loomed with its marble columns, bustling with attorneys and litigants. He steeled himself for the possibility of seeing Olivia for the first time, face to face, since the lounge explosion. Inside, they navigated corridors to a small hearing room. A few uniformed court officers stood aside. Stephen's pulse quickened when he spotted Olivia in the hallway, quietly conversing with a tall woman in a dark blazer, likely Clark, her lawyer. Olivia wore a demure black dress, hair pinned back. Her eyes flicked to Stephen, brimming with anxiety. She looked haggard compared to her usual polished self. He didn't approach her. Instead, Faith led him straight into the hearing room. They sat at a table. Across the aisle, Olivia and Clark took seats. The judge, a middle-aged woman with a measured gaze, entered, and everyone rose. Once seated, the judge scanned some files on her desk. All right, we have Fielding versus Fielding, motion to freeze marital assets pending final divorce resolution. Ms. Johnson, you're representing the petitioner. Ms. Clark, you have the respondent. Let's hear your positions. Faith stood, heels tapping lightly on the polished floor. She spoke clearly, citing Stephen's strong financial contributions, the explicit affair, and suspicious fund transfers. She underscored the risk that Olivia might deplete accounts, if not restrained. Given Ms. Fielding's demonstrated dishonesty, my client seeks a protective freeze, ensuring no assets vanish before equitable division is determined. Then Clark rose. Her tone was calm, but a tad defensive. Your Honor, while Ms. Fielding acknowledges an extramarital relationship, that alone doesn't justify denying her access to living expenses. She's effectively unemployed now, with wedding planner contracts lost after this public scandal. She needs funds to survive. Furthermore, she disputes the extent of the alleged transfers. Some were legitimate business expenses. We request a modest allowance so she's not destitute. Stephen watched Olivia's shoulders quake slightly. Destitute, he thought. She had a separate escape fund, though they didn't know how large. The frustration simmered, but he kept his expression neutral. Faith responded, detailing how Olivia's wrongdoing shouldn't entitle her to drain more resources. My client is open to a minimal monthly allotment if truly necessary, but not full access. We have exhibit pages showing the questionable withdrawals labeled as wedding supplies. The judge asked for a few clarifications, flipping through exhibits. Her expression gave little away. Finally, she leaned back. I see enough evidence that Ms. Fielding's finances are in disarray, partly from her own doing. Mr. Fielding is justified in seeking protection. However, we won't let Ms. Fielding starve or become homeless. I'll freeze the major joint accounts, but order Mr. Fielding to provide a modest monthly allowance, subject to further review, unless Ms. Fielding can demonstrate alternative funds. Let's propose a figure. At that, Clark tried to ask for $1,000 per week. Faith nearly scoffed. The judge frowned. After a brief discussion, the judge set an interim measure. Stephen must pay Olivia $600 per month for living expenses until the final hearing, unless she found a job or a formal arrangement. The judge's final line was, "Given Ms. Fielding's affair and probable financial misconduct, a minimal spousal maintenance is appropriate. We'll re-examine in a month or so. Next." When the hearing ended, Stephen felt a mixture of relief and annoyance. On one hand, the freeze was granted, preventing Olivia from tapping into major assets. On the other hand, he had to give her $600 a month for a short time. Not catastrophic, but it stung that she'd benefit at all. Outside the courtroom, Clark nodded politely at Faith, scheduling next steps. Meanwhile, Olivia hovered, clearly wanting to speak with Stephen. He tried to walk away, but she called, "Stephen, please, just a minute." His footsteps halted. With Faith's reassuring presence behind him, he turned. Olivia's eyes brimmed with tears again. You got everything you wanted, I guess," she said, shakily. "I know I messed up, but did you have to do that whole public display?" He kept his tone measured, though bitterness tinged the edges. "You left me no choice. You lied for months, used our accounts for your affair. That was my choice of response. I don't regret it." She swallowed, tears threatening to spill. I have nowhere to go. My parents are furious. The only reason I'm staying with them is because I have no alternative. Do you understand how destroyed my life is?" Stephen's jaw tightened. "I do. And it's not my concern anymore. You made your bed with Dennis, except he's in jail." She flinched at that direct jab. He sighed, reining in any further harsh words. "Look, the court said I pay you a small allowance until final settlement. That's more than you deserve." Olivia's face twisted with hurt. "I never planned to destroy us. It just happened. If you'd listened," he repeated, disbelief in his voice. "Olivia, you refused to be honest. You had your secret condo visits. Don't rewrite history." Her shoulders sagged. "Fine. You're right. I'm sorry." She hesitated. "I hate how this ended, Stephen." He nodded once, not unkindly, but firmly. "So do I. Goodbye, Olivia." Then he turned on his heel, Faith following him. Olivia remained in the corridor, eyes downcast. Exiting the courthouse, Stephen found a measure of closure. He no longer felt an urgent need to confront Olivia further. The law was on his side. The finances were frozen, and his minimal monthly payment was a small price to end the turmoil. "I can handle it for a few weeks until the final settlement," he thought. Faith offered him a handshake. "Good job staying calm. If she's wise, she'll accept a quick settlement. We'll see. Meanwhile, you're free of any large spousal demands. That's a win." He mustered a weary smile. "Thanks, Faith. Let's keep pushing for a final dissolution." Faith nodded, then glanced at her phone. "Call me if she tries anything or if you need to discuss the next hearing. Otherwise, we proceed as normal." "Got it." He watched her stride off toward the parking lot, coat flapping. Then he turned to leave, an odd sense of relief easing the tension in his chest. This was progress. The lines were drawn, and soon the divorce would be final. Then he could truly move on. Later that evening, Stephen returned to Dennis Wood's condo and flopped onto the sofa. The TV droned faintly with some sports highlights, but he hardly focused on it. Dennis approached with a couple of cold sodas, passing one over. "How'd it go at the hearing?" Dennis asked, eyes curious. Stephen gave a half shrug. "Pretty much as expected. We froze the accounts, but I owe her $600 a month in the interim." Dennis let out a low whistle. "That's not too bad, considering everything. You'll come out on top in the final settlement." "That's what Faith says," Stephen muttered. He cracked open the soda. "So, yeah, it's a step forward. I'm done letting her occupy my mind." Dennis looked relieved. "Glad to hear it. You can focus on your real life now." They settled into an easy silence for a moment. Stephen gazed around, noticing the normalcy of his friend's living room pictures of Dennis's family, a few personal knickknacks, the warmth of a stable home. A pang of longing struck him. He wanted that again. Maybe not marriage right away, but a place truly his own, not overshadowed by betrayal. First, finalize the divorce, then maybe rebuild your personal life. In the following days, Stephen immersed himself in work. He visited various project sites, hammering out logistical details, renegotiating supplier contracts. The normalcy restored a sense of competence. He was no longer a blind-sided husband. He was the boss, maintaining professional respect. Meanwhile, Jonathan periodically sent updates about Dennis York's legal troubles. The indicted man was still in custody, failing to post bail due to complicated asset seizures. Rumor said his legal counsel tried to paint him as an unwitting scapegoat, but the evidence was too strong. Olivia's name popped up rarely in these updates. If pressed, she might have to testify about her involvement. So far, no charges against her personally, though some folks whispered she might have aided Dennis. Time would tell. One afternoon, a message arrived from Faith. "We have a date set for settlement talks next week. Clark suggests a face-to-face meeting in her office. I can handle it alone, or you can attend if you want." Stephen replied, "You handle it. No need for me to see Olivia again unless necessary." He felt a sense of liberation. With each passing day, the memory of that public revenge softened. He still endured the occasional jab of heartbreak, but the future loomed brighter. "I survived the worst, and I didn't break." Chapter 7. The next scheduled event was the settlement negotiation at Clark's law office. Faith assured Stephen she'd take point. Still, the morning of the meeting, Stephen paced around Dennis Wood's living room. He felt restless, even if he wasn't required to attend in person. He wondered if Olivia would attempt to push for a bigger monthly sum or some claim on the marital house. He had no illusions that she'd back down easily. Though humiliated, she might hope for financial relief. He paused by the window, looking out over the street. The distant hum of traffic mirrored his internal tension. Eventually, he forced himself to do something productive, flipping open his laptop to handle some site schedules. Halfway through an email, his phone buzzed. Faith's name flashed. "Here we go." He answered. "Hey, Faith, how's it going in the Lion's Den?" A small laugh came across the line. "Better than expected. Clark seems eager to settle quickly. Let me summarize. They're proposing you keep the house, the majority of assets, in exchange for a one-time lump sum for Olivia, plus the minimal monthly payments for a short period, maybe 6 months, after which no spousal support." Stephen's brows rose. "A lump sum? How much are they asking?" $10,000. That's it. She claims it's just to help her restart her life. Frankly, that's low. But it shows how desperate she is. He considered the figure. 10,000 was no small pocket change, but he could afford it if it meant no long, drawn-out fight. That's definitely less than the potential lawyer's fees if we go to trial, right? Exactly. If we drag this to a full trial, the cost might exceed that. Also, no guarantee the judge wouldn't award more. The adultery is on your side, but sometimes judges still grant moderate alimony. This lump sum approach is actually beneficial. He rubbed his chin. I'm shocked she's going that low. But hey, maybe she realized her position is weak. Most likely, Faith said. So your call. We can push for even less or take it. If we sign, the divorce finalizes swiftly once a judge signs off. You'd pay a lump sum, continue the $600 monthly for 6 months, then zero spousal obligations forever. Stephen weighed the options. He'd been bracing for a larger number, like half the house equity or something. $10,000 was a fraction of what some messy divorces cost. The thought of concluding this fiasco quickly felt appealing. He asked, "Could we go lower? 5,000? Faith paused. "We could try. But if we push too hard, Clark might withdraw the offer and relitigate in court, seeking more. That's a risk. My professional stance is, 10 grand is a bargain, unless you want to punish her further, which is more about principle than outcome." Stephen's heart twinged. The vengeful part of him disliked giving Olivia a dime, but the practical side recognized final closure was invaluable. "Let's do it then. 10 grand plus the monthly 600 for 6 months. In exchange, she forfeits any claims on property or further support." "Done." Faith exhaled, relief in her tone. "Wise choice. I'll finalize the paperwork. We'll get Clark's sign-off, then the judge's sign-off. Might take a few weeks to become official, but the outcome is locked if both parties agree." He nodded to himself. "All right. Thanks, Faith. I appreciate your negotiation skills." They ended the call. Closing the laptop, Stephen stared at the wall. The price of ending an 8-year marriage was a mere $10,000 plus, a short spousal bridging. At least that's cheaper than losing half my assets. He felt a swirl of emotions. Triumph, sadness, relief. It's nearly over. He glanced at a side table where he'd stashed some personal photos. Time to plan the future. The following day, Faith updated him that Olivia agreed to the lump sum with minimal fuss. Perhaps she realized she had no better route. Stephen's chest loosened a bit like a weight lifted. They'd be done soon. The final decree could come within a month. He found himself telling Dennis Wood, "Man, I might be free to move on. Maybe find a new place. Set up a fresh start." Dennis grinned. "Looking forward to that. Meanwhile, you can stay as long as you like. Just keep paying your share of groceries," he teased. The comedic banter eased Stephen's tension. For the first time in weeks, he contemplated personal goals beyond just revenge. He pictured traveling, maybe picking up old hobbies. He used to love woodworking. Perhaps now he had time to revisit it. He also recognized the emotional toll he carried. He wasn't naive enough to jump into another relationship soon. The trust he once had was shattered. But maybe in time, he'd open up again. For now, the only immediate vow was to focus on himself. One evening, a subtle text arrived from a number identified as Olivia's mother, Marjorie. Surprised, Stephen hesitated before reading, "Stephen, this is Marjorie. I know it's not my place, but I wanted to say I'm sorry for how everything turned out. We had no idea about Olivia's affair until you exposed it. We're not excusing her actions, but please know we never intended for you to be hurt. If you can find it in your heart, try not to hate her completely. She's in a bad place." He read it twice, sympathy tugging at him. Paul and Marjorie had always been kind, supportive in the early years. They're stuck with a daughter who humiliated them too. He typed a respectful reply. "Marjorie, thank you for reaching out. I don't blame you or Paul. I won't pretend to forgive Olivia's betrayal, but I respect that you care for her. I appreciate your concern. I hope you both find peace in this as well. Take care." Pressing send, he felt an odd pang. At least there's a sliver of civility there. He wouldn't go out of his way to remain in contact with them, but he didn't see them as enemies either. They're victims of her lies, too. With settlement looming, Stephen found himself reviewing the marital house situation. He disliked returning to that place of memories, but it was an asset worth something. He scheduled a meeting with a realtor friend to evaluate its market value. He considered either selling outright or renting it out, maybe living in it eventually, but the emotional baggage was heavy. The realtor, a middle-aged woman named Carla, strolled through the house with him. She pointed out some minor repairs needed, a few aesthetic updates. "We can list it as is or do quick updates for a higher price," she proposed. Stephen frowned, recalling how many spaces in this house were tainted by Olivia's deception. "What's the market range?" Carla gave a ballpark figure that was respectable, more than enough to cover the lump sum to Olivia. The idea of selling, cutting ties to the last vestiges of their shared life, felt cathartic. "Let's do it. I'll fix a few things, then list it," he decided. Walking Carla out, he locked the door behind them. Yes, it's time to let go. A week after the lump sum agreement, Clark's office sent over the final settlement draft, which Faith forwarded to Stephen for a signature. Reading through the final text felt surreal. Stephen retains full ownership of the marital house, bank accounts, and any business or personal assets. Olivia receives $10,000 as a lump sum, plus the continuing $600 monthly for up to 6 months or until she secures stable income, whichever comes first. Both parties waive any future spousal or property claims. The divorce finalizes upon judicial endorsement, with an expected date in about 3 weeks. At the bottom, Olivia's signature was scrawled, dated. She had already signed. The last step was his. Stephen's hand trembled slightly as he wrote his name. "That's it. The final nail." He texted Faith. "Signed, thank you." She replied, "Understood. We'll file tomorrow." His gaze lingered on the scanned copy in his inbox. 8 years undone in a few paragraphs. A swirl of regret mingled with relief. But overshadowing all was the knowledge that he'd escaped this fiasco with minimal damage. "She tried to break me, and I survived." On a drizzly Wednesday afternoon, Stephen found a message from Faith. Judge signed the settlement, divorce is final, paperwork in the mail. He sat in his parked truck for a moment after reading that text. The windshield wipers rhythmically cleared the splattering rain. The final moment had arrived without fanfare, no dramatic hearing, no last-minute tears from Olivia. A quiet end to a loud saga. He stared at the raindrops beating on the hood. "I'm officially divorced." The word carried a strange heaviness, yet a subtle sense of liberation pulsed behind it. "We're done. For real." He inhaled, letting the swirl of emotion wash over him. No tears came this time, he'd already shed them privately. Instead, he felt an odd calm. He typed a short note to Dennis Wood. "Divorce is final. Let's get a drink tonight. My treat." Dennis replied immediately. "Count me in, buddy." That evening, they met at a low-key pub near the river. A cozy corner table was free, so they settled in. The overhead lighting was dim, reflecting softly on the polished wooden surfaces. A faint whiff of fried food and beer filled the air. Stephen ordered a light ale. Dennis got the same. They clinked glasses. Dennis raised his in a half-smile. "To you, man. Survived the worst. Freed from a cheating spouse." Stephen smirked, swirling the amber liquid. "Freed, yeah. Didn't think I'd come out unscathed, but I did okay. Lost some illusions, that's for sure." They took swigs. Dennis tapped the table. "You planning to keep living at my place or looking for your own soon?" Stephen set the beer down. "I'm listing the house. Meanwhile, I might get an apartment or maybe buy a smaller condo. I'm not sure yet. Thanks for letting me stay. But I don't want to impose forever." Dennis scoffed lightly. "Impose? Nah, I'm just your buddy offering a couch. Or guest room, rather." He paused, voice turning sincere. "But do what's best for you." Their conversation drifted from practicalities to lighter topics, sports, upcoming events. For the first time in ages, Stephen felt normal, not overshadowed by the tension of betrayal. The memory of Olivia's meltdown at the lounge flickered like a distant nightmare. After a second round, Stephen and Dennis stepped outside. The cool night air reminded Stephen of the evening he walked away from that catastrophic anniversary party. Except now, he wasn't weighed down by immediate heartbreak or fury. He just felt cleansed. He glanced up at the sky, stars partially hidden by city glow. Maybe tomorrow he'd finalize the real estate listing, proceed with the few repairs Carla recommended. Then, he'd take a day off, possibly drive to the coast or visit a woodworking supply store to reawaken that old hobby. The future was wide open. Dennis slapped his shoulder, snapping him out of thought. "You all right?" Stephen smiled faintly. "Yeah. Just thinking about tomorrow. No more fear about accounts being drained, no more all-night suspicious phone calls to worry about. It's good." Dennis grinned. "I'm proud of you. Seriously." A flicker of something close to gratitude shone in Stephen's eyes. "Thanks. Couldn't have done it alone, Jonathan, Faith. You all had my back." They walked to Dennis's car, the quiet city street reflecting the warmth of a fresh start. Stephen set his jaw, determined to leave Olivia's betrayal behind. I have a second chance at life. The notion filled him with cautious optimism. Chapter 8. 2 weeks after the divorce was finalized, Stephen's life began to adopt a semblance of normal routine. He spent occasional evenings alone, sorting through personal projects, and other nights socializing with old friends who'd reconnected after hearing about his ordeal. The local gossip about Olivia's meltdown slowly faded as new dramas occupied the rumor mills. One crisp Saturday morning, Stephen decided to revisit the marital home to handle final tasks before listing. The realtor had advised painting a couple of walls to freshen up, patching small holes. He pulled up, keys in hand, feeling no dread this time, just focus. The day was bright, the lawn overgrown in need of a mow, but that was a minor fix. He unlocked the door, stepping into the living room. Dust motes drifted in a sunbeam. The silence was profound, but not as heavy as before. This is no longer my home. It's just real estate now. He changed into old clothes and set about painting a scuffed wall in the hallway. The rhythmic brushstrokes soothed him. Therapeutic. Almost. Midway through, he took a break, rummaging the fridge for water. It was empty except for some ancient condiments. With a wry grin, he realized he hadn't restocked since the meltdown. No matter. He returned to painting. A knock on the open front door startled him. He turned, paintbrush still in hand, to see a petite woman with short dark hair smiling politely. "Hello? Are you Stephen? Carla, the realtor, said you might be here. I'm Jillian, her stager." He blinked. "Oh, right. Come in. I forgot she mentioned a stager might come by to scope out the place." Jillian stepped inside, giving the half-painted wall a quick glance. "You're doing a good job patching. Carla suggested we lightly stage the main rooms to attract buyers. I wanted to see the layout." He nodded, guiding her through the living room and kitchen. She scribbled notes about furniture arrangement, maybe a few decorative touches. "We'll bring in some neutral pieces. Keep it minimal. This space gets good natural light," she commented, pointing at the windows. Stephen merely followed, feeling oddly detached from the conversation. Yes, it has decent light. This was once the living room where he and Olivia hosted a few cozy gatherings, but it might soon belong to new owners. After 10 minutes, Jillian finished measuring. "Great. I'll coordinate with Carla. We'll do a subtle stage next week. Should help it sell faster." He extended his thanks. Before she left, she paused, offering a sympathetic look. Carla mentioned a divorce situation. I'm sorry if it's a tough time for you, but I promise we'll do our best to make the sale smooth. Stephen gave a small, grateful smile. I appreciate that. It's fine. I just want a clean break. Jillian nodded gently. Understood. Take care. We'll be in touch. Resuming his painting, Stephen mulled over how quickly the house would likely sell in the current market. Maybe within a month or two, he'd be free of it entirely. Then I can finalize a new home for myself. The memory of lying in bed with Olivia, talking about future home renovations, flashed in his mind. He clenched his jaw, dispelling it. That future never materialized, replaced by betrayal. Focus on the present. He dabbed paint, smoothing out an uneven patch. A ring from his phone cut through his thoughts. Checking it, he saw it was Jonathan. Hey, everything okay? Jonathan's voice sounded relaxed. Yep, just checking on you, man. Haven't heard from you in a bit. You out at the house? Yeah, Stephen said. Doing final paint. Then a stager's coming next week. Cool, good progress. I'm actually heading that way. Mind if I stop by? Stephen smiled to himself. Sure. Could use some help, or at least company. I have an extra paintbrush, if you're game. Jonathan laughed. We'll see. Be there in 15. When Jonathan arrived, the two of them shared a quick handshake by the door. Stephen noted the subtle relief in Jonathan's eyes, as if Jonathan wanted to confirm Stephen's mental state was stable post-divorce. Indeed, Stephen felt better than he had in months. They chatted as they worked, Jonathan doing minor tasks like removing old nails from the wall. Occasionally they paused, reflecting on how this place once bustled with illusions of happiness. Jonathan suddenly asked, You ever think about how you want to handle your next relationship? Not that you have to jump in, but do you trust again? Stephen's brush froze mid-stroke. He let out a slow breath. I've thought about it, sure. Right now, it's not a priority. I'm not opposed to dating eventually, but I don't want to carry baggage or mistrust from what Olivia did. That'll take time. Jonathan nodded thoughtfully. Makes sense. Just making sure you're not swearing off love forever, he said, with a gentle grin. Stephen managed a small chuckle. No, I'm not that cynical, but a break is welcome. They continued painting, the conversation shifting to lighter topics, favorite restaurants, sports. The day wore on, and a sense of accomplishment filled Stephen as the hallway looked fresh and bright, symbolic of a new start, he mused. Late afternoon, Jonathan left, and Stephen decided to do a final sweep of the bedroom closets. He wanted no leftover personal items. Entering the master bedroom, he noticed faint scuff marks on the floor from when he'd yanked out suitcases. The memories of that night flashed, his frantic packing, anger roiling in his gut. That feels like a lifetime ago. He opened the closet, pushing aside emptiness, but in the corner, a small cardboard shoebox remained. He bent down, lifted it. The top was slightly ajar, revealing old postcards. Some receipts. He recognized Olivia's handwriting scrawled on a note. She must have overlooked this. Curiosity overcame him. He flipped through the contents, mostly random keepsakes. Then he found a small black notebook. The first few pages contained wedding planner sketches from Olivia dress silhouettes, color palettes, possibly from an old project. Next pages were personal scribbles. Some looked like early-day journaling about their relationship. He saw lines referencing their first year of marriage, some sweet remarks about him being her rock. A pang of sorrow stabbed his chest. She once viewed me that way. He turned to another page, a half-finished letter she'd apparently written, but never sent. It started, Stephen, I fear I'm losing my sense of self. Sometimes I wish we spent more time just talking like we used to. I need something to make me feel alive again. He frowned, This might have been around the time she started drifting. We never had that conversation, did we? She internalized it, eventually turned to Dennis. The words were incomplete, abruptly ending. The rest of the notebook was blank or ripped out. Slowly, he closed the notebook. A swirl of regret and residual anger mixed. She should have voiced her feelings, or asked for therapy, or parted ways if she was that unhappy. Instead, she chose deceit. Tossing the notebook into the box, he debated whether to trash it or keep it. After a long moment, he resolved to throw the entire box in the recycling bin. I have enough burdens without preserving her half-finished confessions. That night, he returned to Dennis Wood's place with a sense of finality. The last personal item from the house had been disposed of, the rest was cleaned. The stager could do her job, and soon it'd be on the market. My ties to that place are nearly severed. He scrolled his phone for rentals or condos. Most appealing was a modern two-bedroom, downtown pricier, but close to his construction sites and city life. Another option was a smaller place near the outskirts. He saved a few listings to revisit the next day. Time to stand on my own feet again. Dennis came in from the hallway, noticing Stephen scanning real estate. Looking for a permanent spot? Stephen nodded, a small grin forming. Yeah, gonna find my own place. You've been super generous, but I can't mooch forever. Dennis shook his head. Dude, no rush. But I'm glad you're moving forward. They spent the evening in comfortable silence, each on their laptop, occasionally sharing a random quip. Stephen couldn't recall the last time he felt so at peace. A few days later, a surprising text popped up from an unknown number. Hi, Stephen. It's Faith, the caterer, not your lawyer. Could we chat about something? Sorry for the intrusion. Stephen paused, remembering Faith, the event caterer who had once assumed Olivia was booking lavish dinners for an anniversary. Why would she text now? He typed back politely. Sure. Is everything okay? Her reply. All good. I have some info about a friend's wedding. They wanted your potential involvement from a construction angle. Might be a weird request. Could we meet for coffee? He found it odd, but shrugged. Could be a random business opportunity or a personal favor. Nothing to lose. He agreed to meet at a coffee shop near the harbor that afternoon. That afternoon, the harbor area bustled with tourists. Stephen sat at a small table in the coffee shop, scanning passers-by through the window. He spotted Faith the caterer in a crisp blouse, approaching with an apologetic smile. They exchanged greetings, and she offered to buy him a latte as thanks for meeting. Once settled, Faith stirred her cappuccino. Thanks for agreeing to meet. You must be so busy. First, let me say how sorry I am for what happened with Olivia. I only realized how deep that was after everything blew up. I never suspected. Stephen gave a polite nod. It's behind me now. She exhaled. I'm relieved. So about this request, I have a friend named Jenna who's planning a wedding. She heard about your background in construction and might want some unique custom pieces built for an outdoor ceremony, like an archway or maybe a mini deck platform. She asked if I knew anyone. I thought, well, you sometimes do side carpentry. I recall you mentioning it at a corporate event once. His brows rose. Indeed, a long time ago, he'd told Faith he did woodworking as a hobby. I do. Haven't done commissions in a while, but I'm open. Depends on details. Faith brightened. Oh, that's fantastic. Jenna's fiancé is big on handcrafted local style. If you're interested, I could connect you. They have a moderate budget, but enough to pay fairly. I also figured after all you've been through with wedding drama, maybe you'd find a measure of, I don't know, redemption? Working on a good wedding scenario? A small chuckle escaped him. I see the irony. Sure, I'll talk to them. It might be a nice creative outlet, plus some extra income. The idea of building something for a wedding that wasn't overshadowed by lies felt strangely poetic. They chatted about the specifications. Faith mentioned how she was catering that wedding, which was set in a scenic orchard. The vibe was rustic. Stephen scribbled notes. The conversation flowed easily, lacking any tension. He realized it felt good to connect with someone from the old event scene who wasn't entangled in the fiasco. As they finished, Faith tapped her phone. "Let me show you a quick mood board Jenna sent. These arches, for example." She displayed an image of a wooden arch draped in soft linens. Another shot showcased a small dais. Stephen nodded, imagining the building process. He caught himself feeling a flicker of genuine excitement. "I can handle this." They swapped emails. Faith gave him Jenna's contact details. Then she patted his arm gently. "Stephen, if it's too soon or triggers bad memories, it's okay to say no. But from what I can see, you're stronger than that." His lips curved in a faint smile. "I appreciate your concern, but I'm good. Let's do it. A wedding that ends happily might be a refreshing change." She laughed lightly, finishing her cappuccino. "Agreed. I'll let Jenna know. Thanks again, Stephen." As she left, he felt a sense of possibility. Constructing something positive from the remnants of my broken illusions. The idea resonated. He sipped his coffee, letting the harbor's breeze drift in through the open door. That night, he emailed Jenna, introducing himself, explaining his background in woodworking and construction. Within an hour, she responded with enthusiasm, attaching further inspiration photos. The conversation ended with them scheduling a site visit at the orchard the following week. Reading her grateful tone made him realize he felt no pang of bitterness about weddings. He had separated the concept of marriage from Olivia's betrayal. It was her personal failings, not the institution itself, that caused pain. "I might not be rushing to the altar again, but I can still build a sweet arch for someone else's dream ceremony." Catching a glimpse of his reflection in the laptop screen, he saw a man who had endured heartbreak and emerged calmer, more self-assured. The revenge was done, the divorce final. He'd soon have his own place and a new creative project. Life is moving forward. He closed the laptop with a small sense of satisfaction. For the first time in a long while, the future didn't feel overshadowed by regret or anger. It's time to truly live again. Chapter 9. Stephen parked his truck on a dusty gravel path leading up to the orchard. The place was gorgeous in a rustic, sprawling way, rows upon rows of apple and pear trees, wooden fences, and a cozy barn in the distance. The sunlight filtered through the leaves, giving the air a gentle golden haze. He spotted two figures waiting near the barn's open doors. One of them, a petite woman with shoulder-length hair, was Faith, the caterer, who had connected him to this project. Next to her stood a couple, presumably Jenna and her fiancé, Xander. As Stephen stepped out, the scent of fresh grass and fertile earth greeted him. He had always liked the calm of natural spaces, especially after his tumultuous year. Rubbing his hands over his jeans, he approached the group, scanning the orchard for potential building sites. He was here to plan the custom arch and small platform for Jenna's wedding. In a sense, it was symbolic, participating in someone else's hopeful ceremony while having survived the wreckage of his own marriage. Faith waved brightly. "Stephen, thanks for coming." He shook her hand. "My pleasure," he replied, then smiled at Jenna and Xander. "Nice place you've got here." Jenna clasped her hands in excitement. She was tall and lean, wearing casual boots. "We're renting the orchard from a friend who owns it," she explained. "It's an outdoor wedding, maybe 70 guests. We want something that feels personal. We heard you do amazing custom woodwork." Xander gave a friendly nod. We found some references to your smaller woodworking projects, online table sets, a porch swing. We love that handmade vibe. Stephen forced down a mild twinge of anxiety at the word wedding. He was here for business. I appreciate your trust, he said steadily. Let's see what you have in mind. They strolled together, leaving footprints in the grassy soil. Faith pointed to a clearing between two towering pear trees. We'll set up the main ceremony here. The bride and groom want a short wooden deck, just enough space for them and the officiant, plus a nice arch at the front to frame them. She tapped her phone, showing pictures for reference. Jenna chimed in. We're hoping for something that matches the orchard's natural aesthetic, maybe reclaimed wood, if possible. Stephen rubbed his jaw, thinking through the design logistics. Sure. Reclaimed wood or cedar could work. A soft finish, maybe some subtle carvings that match your theme. We'll anchor the deck so it's stable, and the arch can be either a single overhead curve or something with cross beams. Let me know your preference. Jenna and Xander exchanged excited glances. A curve up top would be lovely, Jenna said. Xander and I also like the idea of some carved apple blossoms or something orchard-related. Stephen nodded. I can incorporate carved details, yes. Let's keep it minimal but elegant. The orchard's already scenic, so the arch shouldn't overshadow the trees. They discussed dimensions, budget, timeline. Stephen kept notes on a small pad. He was grateful that he'd taken on a handful of private commissions in the past, helped him approach this calmly. As they walked back, Faith hung around, occasionally interjecting a suggestion. Near the end of their sight walk, Jenna cleared her throat. We heard from Faith about your, experience in the events world. She said you might have reservations about wedding stuff. We want you to know we deeply appreciate your artistry. If it's too emotionally complicated, we'd understand if you turned us down. But we hope you'll do it. He caught Faith giving him a sympathetic glance. She must have told them about the messy divorce. A gentle hush fell over the group. Stephen inhaled the orchard's fresh air. I admit, he said softly, my past year's been intense. But building something that stands for your new beginning might be exactly the kind of closure I can appreciate. I'm on board, no worries. Jenna smiled, relief clear on her face. Thanks, Stephen. We're grateful. Back in the barn, Xander showed him a rough sketch with their color palette, while Jenna described how they'd like to drape some foliage across the arch. Stephen made mental notes. I'll gather materials likely cedar or possibly reclaimed oak if I can find it in good condition. The deck might be around 8 feet wide, maybe 6 feet deep, so you have space to stand comfortably. Jenna nodded enthusiastically. Perfect. We also want a step or two at the front so it's raised from the ground. Nothing too high, though. Xander handed Stephen a deposit check, finalizing their handshake. We're excited. The wedding's in about 8 weeks. That timeline okay for you? Stephen had to gauge his current schedule. He was juggling his usual construction management job plus the house listing, but 8 weeks was feasible for a side woodworking project if he paced it well. Should be fine, he replied. I'll do some quick design mock-ups for you to approve. They parted ways, and Stephen paused to talk with Faith alone by the orchard's entrance, while the engaged couple strolled off. Faith, arms folded comfortably, gave him an appraising look. You're handling this better than I expected. Not even a flinch. He shrugged, stepping onto the gravel. Life moves on. People get married all the time. My fiasco doesn't mean I can't contribute to something positive. She smiled softly. I admire that. If you need help or referrals for wood suppliers, let me know. Also, the orchard's caretaker is flexible with letting you measure or test fit the deck before final installation. He nodded. I appreciate it. After a short, friendly goodbye, he headed to his truck, a renewed sense of purpose filling him. Designing and crafting was a healthy outlet. Perhaps Forging something beautiful for a wedding will close the chapter on my bitterness. That evening, Stephen returned to Dennis Wood's condo, rummaging in the garage for his old woodworking sketches. He discovered a large cardboard portfolio containing rough plans from past smaller projects. Laying them out on a makeshift work table, he flipped pages, garden benches, a custom picnic table he once built for a neighbor, a half-finished arch concept he'd doodled for a friend's vow renewal never used since that friend ended up eloping. Funny how life changes. Methodically, Stephen selected ideas that fit Jenna's orchard vibe. He pictured gentle curves and airy design, perhaps decorative carved apple blossoms on the arch's supports. He scribbled some fresh lines on new paper, noting approximate measurements: 8 wide arch, 7, 5 tall at the peak, deck behind it. Amid the quiet of Dennis's garage, he felt a stirring of enjoyment. He realized it had been a while since he immersed himself in a creative project outside of the heavy responsibilities at his day job. This is good for me. The overhead light hummed softly. Stephen stuck an old pencil behind his ear. In the corner, he spotted a dusty box containing some of his father's old chisels and carving tools, inherited ages ago. Those might come in handy if I go for carved details. Another wave of warmth. Working with those tools might add meaning. With a tired but content sigh, he wrapped up for the night, deciding he'd refine the mock-ups tomorrow. In the following days, Stephen juggled his usual construction management tasks while devoting spare hours to the orchard wedding project. Early mornings or late evenings found him in the condo's garage, measuring timber or sketching patterns. He tested different arch shapes, mocking them up with scrap lumber. Each step reminded him he was forging something new from raw material, just as he was rebuilding his life from the rubble left by Olivia's betrayal. Occasionally, he'd think of that humiliating anniversary party fiasco, the unstoppable momentum that led to the public meltdown. The memory no longer seared with fresh pain. It was more of a cautionary tale. Never ignore warning signs. Communicate openly. Or walk away with dignity. Dennis popped in sometimes, offering a silly joke like, "So, building a wedding arch is your therapy, huh?" Stephen would smirk. If the shoe fits. Indeed, seeing the straightforward progress of shaping wood was far less complicated than sorting out emotional scars. But it helped. Meanwhile, real estate updates trickled in from Carla. Interest in Stephen's house listing was decent. They had a couple of showings, a few positive remarks about the newly painted walls. Some prospective buyer asked about the yard. Another loved the open floor plan. Stephen felt a mild flutter each time Carla texted him about an interested party. Let them buy it soon. He wanted closure. One Saturday, a strong offer came from a young family, slightly below the asking price, but all cash. Carla said it was a solid deal with minimal contingencies. Stephen weighed it, consulted Dennis. The sum was more than enough to settle everything, cover the lump sum he'd already parted with for Olivia, and help him purchase a new condo comfortably. He accepted the offer, feeling a fresh wave of relief. That house is about to be someone else's dream. The closing was set in about 4 weeks. Perfect timing for Stephen's new start. Though Stephen had effectively locked away Olivia from his day-to-day, small reminders still cropped up. The monthly allowance of $600 for her kept auto-paying from a designated account. He got an email confirming the second payment was processed. That's 4 more months to go unless she finds a job. The thought occasionally rankled him, funding the woman who betrayed him. Yet it was a done deal. Just a small cost to remain free. One evening, after finalizing the orchard arch design, he glimpsed an unread text from an unknown number. Might be a new vendor or something, he thought, but upon opening it, his heart lurched. "Stephen, it's Olivia. This is my new phone. I just wanted you to know I'm looking for a job. I realize the monthly money won't last. I don't expect your pity, but thank you for not letting me starve. We don't have to be friends or anything. I just wanted to let you know. He stared at the screen, tension knotting his neck. She was contacting him again with a bizarre courtesy update, possibly a ploy to seem contrite. He typed a curt reply. I'm aware of the arrangement. That's all. Good luck. Then he blocked her new number. He had no desire for further contact. We're done. The next day, Faith, the lawyer, called. Just letting you know your ex's attorney reached out. They confirm Olivia's job hunt. She might end the spousal support early if she lands stable employment. Stephen welcomed the news quietly. Fine. If that happens, we can finalize that piece sooner. Anything else? Faith sounded relaxed. No major updates. The divorce is done, settlement is in place, your finances are safe. She's living with a cousin or friend, apparently. She's not a threat. I guess that's it. Stephen exhaled, a faint wave of gratitude for how Faith had helped him navigate the legal minefield. So many people had my back. Thank you for everything, Faith. I appreciate it. Of course, came her cheerful reply. Now go live your best life. Stephen, don't dwell on the past. He smiled at the phone, letting her positivity bolster him. Working on it, he promised. Progress on the orchard project advanced smoothly. Stephen purchased a batch of reclaimed cedar boards from a local salvage yard. The boards had character-weathered edges, a few knots. He spent hours planing and sanding them to a smooth finish. The arch's curved top he constructed in sections, testing the fit in Dennis's driveway. Neighbors walked by, intrigued by the assembly of large wooden arcs. Some teased Stephen about building a portal to another dimension. He'd grin, responding, a dimension called matrimony, if you will. Between sawdust and the aromatic smell of cut cedar, he sometimes paused, reflecting on how ironically joyous he felt building a wedding piece. Guess I'm letting optimism exist for others, if not for me. He arranged a mid-project check with Jenna and Xander at the orchard. They marveled at the half-assembled arch, praising the subtle orchard-themed carvings. Stephen had used a small carving chisel to etch stylized apple blossoms on the upright posts. The couple was thrilled, hugging him in gratitude. This is more beautiful than we even imagined, Jenna said, tears in her eyes. Stephen felt a soft warmth. I'm grateful I can do this. One late afternoon, after finalizing the arch's main structure, he got a call from an unknown local number again. He prepared to ignore it, worried it might be Olivia, but something nudged him to answer. Turned out it was Carla, the realtor, her voice excited. Stephen, good news! The buyer for your house wants to close early. They got all their financing and inspection done. They're asking if you can vacate within 2 weeks. Are you up for that? He wiped sawdust off his forehead, a grin forming. Absolutely, I just need to confirm if I can get a place or short-term rental, but I can do 2 weeks. That's fantastic news. Carla laughed. Perfect. I'll set it up. Ending the call, Stephen realized he needed to finalize his living situation soon. Dennis had never minded him staying, but Stephen wanted to avoid imposing further. Perhaps it was time to pick a condo from the list he'd compiled. I want my own space, especially with my new workshop dreams. He scrolled through his phone's saved listings. One modern loft downtown appealed, but lacked a garage or yard for woodworking. Another was a small single-story near the city's edge with a decent detached garage. That might be perfect. I can renovate the garage into a real workshop. Resolved, he texted the listing agent for a showing. If it panned out, he'd make an offer fast. No more waffling. Time to start the next chapter for real. Chapter 10. The showing for the small single-story property took place on a sunny midweek morning. Stephen arrived a bit early, stepping from his truck onto a tidy curb. The neighborhood was modest, yet well-kept tree-lined sidewalks, a few older bungalows with freshly trimmed lawns. The place he was viewing was painted pale blue, with a narrow front porch and a detached garage in the back. The listing agent, a chipper woman named Sherry, waved from the driveway. "Morning, Stephen. Ready to see your potential new home?" He nodded, scanning the exterior. The house wasn't large, 2 bedrooms, a single bath, but it had a certain charm. "Definitely. Is that the garage?" He pointed to a structure at the rear, its siding a bit worn but seemingly sturdy. Sherry smiled. "Yes, it's older but spacious. The previous owner used it mainly for storage. You mentioned wanting a workshop?" Stephen's spirits lifted. "Exactly. I'd probably reinforce it, add better lighting, maybe insulation for year-round woodworking. Let's check inside." They walked around the side yard, stepping through a side door into the garage. Dust motes floated in the sunbeams from a small window. The interior spanned about 300 square feet, enough for a decent bench and tool area. The rafters looked stable. Stephen mentally pictured shelves, a dust collection system. This could work. He turned to Sherry. "I like it. Let's see the house." Inside the bungalow, Stephen found a cozy living room with hardwood floors. The paint colors were neutral, the kitchen modest but functional. The bedrooms were small, but he only needed one for sleeping and maybe the other as a home office. He opened a closet. Plenty of storage. Sherry explained details about the roof's age, fairly new, the recent water heater replacement. Stephen appreciated how well-maintained it was. He mentally compared it to the memory-laden house he was selling. That was bigger, but overshadowed by Betrayal. This smaller place might be a perfect fresh start. He stepped into the kitchen, turning on the faucet. Water pressure was decent. With each quick test, the place grew on him. Standing near a window, he envisioned quiet mornings brewing coffee before heading to a construction site, or returning to tinker in the garage workshop at night. Feels right. "Any questions?" Sherry asked. He rubbed his neck. "Just the price. Is it flexible?" She glanced at her notes. "Slightly. It's been on the market a few weeks, no major offers yet. You could come in a bit under asking. The seller is motivated." He nodded. "I'm about to close on my old place. Should have funds. Let's do it." Sherry blinked, surprised by his decisiveness. "Wonderful. I'll draft an offer. Any contingencies?" "Standard inspection. If everything's good, I'll proceed quickly. I'd like to move in soon, within a month." Sherry beamed. "This will be a breeze then. Let's finalize it." Within 2 days, Stephen's offer was accepted, slightly under listing price. Great. Even after paying off everything from the old house, I'll be comfortable. He arranged an inspection, which returned no major issues. The seller was fine with a swift closing. In about 3 weeks, I could own my new place. Meanwhile, Carla confirmed the closing date on his old house. Perfect timing. Stephen would vacate, stay with Dennis a bit longer if needed, then seamlessly move. The momentum thrilled him. He told Dennis the plan, who teased, "I guess I'll have the condo to myself again. I'll miss your cooking attempts, man." Stephen chuckled. "I'll swing by with groceries from time to time, keep you from starving." They shared a grin, each relieved that Stephen's life was stabilizing. Dennis slapped a hand on Stephen's back. "Congrats, buddy. You deserve it." Amid this whirlwind of real estate changes, Stephen pressed forward on the Orchard Arch project. He'd installed the deck framing at the orchard site, driving some sturdy posts into the ground. Jenna and Xander admired how the platform took shape. He left final finishing for a week before the wedding, not wanting weather to warp fresh lumber. One afternoon, while he was at the orchard sanding the deck boards, Faith, the caterer, strolled over, balancing a clipboard. "Hey, Steven, just making sure the timeline's good. The wedding is in a month. You on track?" He nodded, wiping sweat from his brow. "Yes. The arch is mostly done. I'll bring it in sections. The deck's about half finished, another day or two of work, then ceiling should be perfect." Faith beamed. "They'll be so thrilled. You're an angel, you know." He raised an eyebrow with a faint smirk. "Don't think anyone's called me an angel. More like I'm a guy with a hammer and some free time." She laughed. "Nonetheless, it's great to see you in your element." Then a shadow crossed her expression. "I heard from a coworker that Olivia might be sniffing around for wedding planner gigs again, trying to reestablish her name. Just a heads up." Stephen paused, a flicker of tension in his chest. "Oh, she thinks she can waltz back into that scene after everything?" Faith shrugged. "I guess so. Not many want to hire her, though. Word spreads fast. She's still somewhat blacklisted. She claims to be reformed, but people remember the scandal. I thought you might want to know in case she tries contacting your orchard clients or something." He exhaled. "Thanks for the heads up. But Jenna's never met Olivia. She's under your catering contract, so hopefully we're safe." Faith put a comforting hand on his arm. "I doubt Olivia can sabotage anything here. Don't let it bother you." Stephen nodded, forcibly relaxing his shoulders. "I won't. Let her do whatever she wants. I'm done." That said, an undercurrent of worry gnawed at him. Olivia's desperation might lead to some stunt, but he was determined not to let it overshadow him again. Meanwhile, he spent evenings packing up the last of his items at Dennis's place. So once the old house closed and the new one was ready, he'd move straight in. The swirl of packing tape, boxes, and labeled bins felt like déjà vu from the day he'd fled his marital home in anger. But this time, the packing was purposeful, calm. "I'm leaving by choice, for a better place." Dennis teased, "I'll be bored without you rummaging around at odd hours building wedding arches in my garage." Stephen smirked, tossing a pillow at him. "You'll manage." One night, as he sealed a box of random possessions, Stephen found a moment of reflection. A year ago, he'd been a stunned husband discovering infidelity. Now, he was a divorced man about to buy a cozy bungalow, working on a wedding arch for new lovebirds. Life's unpredictability was astonishing. He paused, picking up the folder containing the orchard arch sketches. Flicking through them, he realized how far he'd come from that bitterness. A quiet sense of peace enveloped him. Closing day on his old house arrived. Carla had the paperwork laid out at a title office. Stephen signed documents swiftly. The buyer, a pleasant couple in their 30s with a toddler, smiled across the table, excited about their new home. He parted with the keys, not a single pang of regret. "They can make better memories there than I did." After final signatures, Carla shook his hand. "Congrats, Stephen. It's official. Funds should hit your account by tomorrow." He exhaled a deep breath. "Thank you, Carla. You were great." As he walked to his truck, he realized how unburdened he felt. The house once the site of heartbreak was no longer his responsibility. That chapter is done. Driving away, he never looked back, eyes firmly on the road ahead. The next day, the orchard arch was near completion. Stephen stored the pieces in Dennis's garage, ready to transport them. The wedding was 3 weeks out, so he had time to do a final protective coat on the cedar. He'd also made decorative braces for the arch corners, carved with orchard motifs. Jenna texted him, brimming with excitement. "Saw pictures Faith sent of the arch piece is beautiful. Can't wait to see it assembled. Thank you, Stephen." He responded with a simple, Happy to make your day special. He took a moment to reflect on how wedding photos in the orchard would permanently feature his craftsmanship. In some intangible way, maybe that overshadowed the negative connotation of weddings from his own past. The fresh cedar would carry new vows, new hope. This might be the best therapy indeed. With the old house sold, Stephen finalized paperwork for his new bungalow. The inspection was fine, so the closing was set in about 2 weeks. Perfect. I'll store my belongings at Dennis's for a short while, then move in. Meanwhile, his daily routine revolved around finishing the orchard deck, finalizing details, and ensuring everything was lined up for an easy wedding day installation. He was halfway through applying a sealant coat on the deck boards at the orchard site when a figure approached from the dirt path. At first, Stephen assumed it was Faith or Jenna, but then his gut clenched. He recognized Olivia's silhouette. She wore a plain dress, face drawn and subdued. Blood roared in his ears. What the hell is she doing here? She stopped a few feet away. "Stephen," she said softly, "I heard you were working on a wedding arch here." He stiffened, placing the brush carefully on the plank. "How did you find out?" She gave a half shrug. "I do still have a few contacts in the wedding world. Word travels. I'm not here to cause trouble. I just wanted to see you." Her eyes flicked to the partially finished deck. "You're building for someone else's happy day?" His hands tightened. "Yes," he replied shortly. "Why are you here, Olivia?" She exhaled, arms folded. "I know we're divorced. I know everything is final. I'm trying to piece my life back together. I was hoping you'd talk to me, maybe reference me to a smaller wedding planner job." Her gaze flickered with desperation. "I realize that's a crazy request, after all that happened, but I'm out of options." He stared in disbelief. "You must be joking. You want me to vouch for you? Why would I do that?" She bit her lip. "I made a lot of mistakes. I'm not expecting forgiveness, but I can't get clients. People whisper about the scandal. I thought maybe if you told them I was still capable." He cut her off, anger rising. "Capable? Olivia, do you recall how you humiliated me, betrayed me financially, publicly? Our entire friend circle discovered your affair with a con man. You think I'll help you get wedding gigs?" She cringed, tears forming. "Yes, I was awful. I lost everything. But I'm not a bad planner. I just got tangled up in—" She trailed off, seeing the fury in his eyes. Stephen's heart pounded. The orchard was a place of calm, yet her presence reawakened tension. "Look," he said, voice cold, "I won't sabotage you further, but I won't promote you either. You made your bed. Earning trust again is your burden, not mine." She sniffled, tears sliding down her cheeks. "I understand," she whispered. "I'm sorry I came. I'm desperate." He forced himself to remain calm. "Then find a normal job outside of wedding planning if the community's blacklisted you. Don't drag me into your redemption quest." She nodded shakily, wiping her eyes. "I get it. I'll go." She turned to leave, then paused. "You've changed so much, Stephen. You used to be gentler." He felt a pang but didn't let it show. "That gentle man, you recall, died when you lied and manipulated me. Now kindly leave. This is someone else's wedding site, and your presence is not welcome." She swallowed, chest shuddering with sobs, then walked away. Stephen stood there, fists clenched, adrenaline coursing. After a moment, he realized he was trembling. She had the nerve to ask me for references. Letting out a shaky breath, he forced himself to refocus on the ceiling job. Each brushstroke steadied him. "She's out of my life. Stay firm." That evening, he texted Faith, the caterer, warning her about Olivia's presence at the orchard. Faith responded with alarm. I'll tighten security. She won't approach Jenna or sabotage the event. Don't worry. Stephen appreciated that. Another friend stepping up to protect the couple's special day from unwanted drama. I can't believe she stooped so low. He reminded himself Olivia's downfall was her own doing. If she truly wanted redemption, she'd have to rebuild her career from scratch, not lean on him. He vented a bit to Dennis about the incident. Dennis shook his head, outraged. She's shameless. Good for you holding your ground. Stephen nodded. It rattled me, but I'll manage. That night, he dreamed of the orchard, overshadowed by a swirling storm cloud shaped like Olivia's face. He woke with a start, heart pounding, but calmed quickly. She can't hurt me again. He was forging a new path. On the horizon, a new home, a creative wedding arch completed, and hopefully a life no longer haunted by betrayal. Chapter 11. 2 weeks before the orchard wedding, Stephen's final tasks aligned almost poetically with the big changes in his personal life. He had arranged to close on his new bungalow in a few days. He'd loaded most of his possessions into a small storage unit, leaving only a suitcase of clothes at Dennis's condo. The sense of transition felt intense, like everything was shifting at once, but in a good way. At the orchard, the deck was 95% complete. The arch frames were carved, sanded, sealed, and ready for assembly on site. Stephen had tested the fit-in sections at the orchard once, verifying it all matched. It's going to look stunning. He took pride in the carved apple blossoms, which turned out better than he initially imagined. Jenna had also asked if Stephen could build a small wooden sign with their names, Jenna and Xander, plus the wedding date. Something simple to place at the orchard entrance. He accepted the request, planning to finish it after his move was done. Faith, the caterer, occasionally checked in, praising his craftsmanship. She teased that he might become the region's hottest custom wedding arch builder if he wasn't careful. Stephen grinned. This is a one-off, but who knows? Closing day for his new bungalow arrived. Stephen drove to the title company's office, a swirl of anticipation. Sherry, the agent, greeted him, forms lined up. The seller was an older gentleman who'd moved to retire near his grandchildren. With minimal fuss, Stephen signed documents, exchanged a handshake, and moments later walked out as the proud owner of a small but promising house with a workable garage. He paused in the parking lot, the keys clutched in his hand. My own place. No ghosts of Olivia, no illusions shattered, just a fresh canvas to shape. Feeling a small surge of triumph, he hopped into his truck, heading straight to the bungalow. Might as well walk through and soak it in as the official owner. Arriving, he unlocked the front door. The air inside carried that faint emptiness typical of a vacant house. He meandered through each room, mentally labeling them. Master bedroom, office, living room, kitchen. Then he opened the back door, stepping onto a small yard leading to the detached garage. He peered in. Hello, future workshop? He set down a box containing some tools. I can start transferring stuff from the storage unit tomorrow. A grin spread across his face as he pictured building new shelves, customizing the space. The smell of possibility replaced any leftover bitterness from his divorce. Here we go. Over the next few days, Stephen methodically moved from Dennis's condo to his new bungalow. Dennis helped with a truck rental for larger items. They carried in boxes, a couch Stephen had stored, plus some chairs. The rest Stephen planned to buy anew, like a fresh bed and new dining set. No old furniture from the marital home. During the move, they joked around. Dennis teased, "Finally evicting you from my place, huh?" Stephen shot back, "Don't worry, I'll invite you for a housewarming when I can afford decent beer." The vibe was light, full of relief. By the third day, the bungalow was mostly in order. Stephen stood in the living room, hands on hips, surveying the stacks of boxes. The place echoed with emptiness, but that emptiness felt like an invitation for new memories. At night, the city's distant hum lulled him to sleep in his own new bedroom. The first morning he woke there, beams of early sun slipping through the thin curtains. He felt a strange sense of calm. No looming dread. He brewed coffee in a makeshift setup on the kitchen counter, letting the warmth fill him. Perhaps for the first time in a long while, he looked forward to each day without bitterness overshadowing it. He told himself he'd finalize the orchard wedding project, then maybe consider some personal carpentry around the house, build custom shelves, maybe a new coffee table. The prospect of shaping his environment with his own hands excited him. A second chance to create a real home, not a stage for betrayal. Meanwhile, wedding day for Jenna and Xander was around the corner. Stephen scheduled to assemble the arch the day prior. He loaded the sections carefully into the back of his truck, double-checking he had all hardware, screws, his power drill, and extra sealant. The small sign with their names was also carved, needing just a final coat of varnish. Faith texted him, detailing the wedding's timeline. Set up from 9 a.m. to noon, bride arrives at 2, ceremony at 3. We can do a test run once you're finished. He responded, "Sounds good. I'll be there early." He was determined to ensure the deck and arch were perfect. No last-minute snags. This is their big day. Let's do it right. The day before the wedding, Stephen arrived at dawn. The orchard was tranquil sunlight slanting through the rows of fruit trees, dew sparkling on leaves. It reminded him how nature's simple beauty could restore the soul. Faith was there too, setting up a small catering station in the barn. They exchanged waves. He unpacked the arch sections, carefully fitting them together. The deck was already installed and stable. The arch slotted neatly into pre-drilled holes along the deck's back edge. He tightened bolts, stepping back to check alignment. Looks pretty damn nice. He affixed the carved braces featuring orchard motifs. The final effect was a gentle arc overhead, swirling carvings reminiscent of apple blossoms. Faith strolled over, awestruck. "Stephen, that's stunning. Jenna will flip when she sees it." He allowed a small smile, pride filling his chest. "I'm glad. Just need to secure it so a gust of wind won't topple it." He hammered a couple of hidden stakes at the base, ensuring everything was stable. Next, he hung the custom sign at the orchard's entrance. "Jenna and Xander, welcome to our wedding." People would see that as they arrived. Faith helped tie a small floral arrangement on the signpost. They stepped back, admiring the effect. By mid-morning, Jenna and Xander showed up to drop off decor. They rushed to the ceremony site, gasping at the arch and deck. Jenna wiped a tear. "It's perfect, more perfect than I imagined." She hugged Stephen spontaneously, who laughed a bit awkwardly but felt genuine warmth in her gratitude. Xander patted his shoulder. "Man, this is incredible. Thank you." As the day wore on, additional decorations appeared: fresh flowers, chairs for guests, small chalkboard signs. Stephen lingered to ensure no issues arose with the arch or deck. Faith occasionally offered him a cold drink. The orchard buzzed with mild pre-wedding excitement. He found himself oddly at ease amidst the hustle, no pangs of old heartbreak creeping in. Instead, he felt content. They deserve a beautiful ceremony, and I helped make it so. Late afternoon, the rehearsal took place. Stephen sat off to the side, watching the bridal party test their procession. The soft orchard breeze rustled the leaves overhead, carrying laughter. That's how a wedding should be, he mused. Genuine joy. Eventually, he packed his tools. The orchard caretaker nodded, satisfied everything was secure. Stephen gave final instructions. "Tomorrow, if any last-minute shift occurs, let me know, but it should hold fine." Then he hopped into his truck, thinking he might drop by in the morning just to confirm. The next morning, Stephen woke early in his new bungalow, sipping coffee on a stool in the kitchen. He considered whether to attend the wedding ceremony. Jenna had half invited him, but he felt it might be best to give them space. He wasn't a guest, per se, just the builder. Still, might be nice to see them exchange vows under the arch I built. Curiosity won out. He decided to check in quietly and watch from the sidelines if it was appropriate. So he dressed in nice casual attire and drove to the orchard, arriving about an hour before the ceremony. The venue bustled with final setup. White chairs in rows facing the deck, soft music playing, a floristry team weaving blossoms around the arch's corners, complementing Stephen's carvings. Looks enchanting. He chatted briefly with Faith, who was overseeing the catering staff. She grinned. "It's coming together smoothly. No sabotage or drama in sight. Olivia nowhere near." He gave a wry smile. "Glad to hear it. I'll just hang back. No intention of intruding, but I do want to see them walk down the aisle." Faith patted his shoulder. "Stay as long as you like. You earned that." When guests arrived, Stephen positioned himself under a distant pear tree, out of direct sight, but close enough to witness the ceremony. He recognized no one except the orchard staff and Faith. The crowd was about 70, as expected. Everyone chatted in cheerful tones, sipping lemonade under the late summer sun. The deck looked postcard perfect with the arch overhead, the small orchard breeze fluttering the draped linen. Time came for the procession. Soft acoustic guitar music began. Bridesmaids in pastel dresses walked the grassy aisle. Groomsmen in casual suits took their places. Then Xander waited at the arch, smiling ear to ear. Jenna appeared from behind the orchard path, arm linked with a relative, looking radiant in a simple white gown. Her eyes shone with tears of joy. Stephen felt an odd stirring reminding him of the day he once watched Olivia approach him in her gown. For a fleeting second, a pang of old sorrow clenched his chest. Then, as if a breeze carried that pain away, it dissipated. This was a different moment for different people. "Good luck, you two." The ceremony was brief, heartfelt. Vows about supporting each other, building a life together. The officiant's voice resonated across the orchard. Stephen caught the phrases, "nurture each other's dreams," for better or worse, and his mind drifted. If only Olivia had believed in that as well. He exhaled, focusing on the present. This couple truly means it. When the officiant said, "You may kiss," applause erupted. Stephen found himself clapping quietly under the pear tree, a genuine smile on his face. The orchard arch behind them glowed in the sunlight, carved blossoms subtly accenting the real floral vines. Perfect unity of craftsmanship and nature. As guests dispersed to the barn for the reception, Stephen slipped away to his truck. He had no desire to intrude on their private celebration. Mission accomplished. The arch served as a testament to fresh starts for them and, in a way, for him as well. He drove back to his bungalow, the sun dipping in the sky. Parking in his driveway, he walked into his own quiet living room. A wave of emotions washed over him. Closure, peace, maybe a tinge of sadness, but mostly relief. He walked to the back garage, flipping the light on. The empty space echoed. Now I can build a new life here. In time, he might fill it with personal projects, maybe help a neighbor with a custom piece, or even do more wedding arches if it felt right. Freed from anger and illusions, Stephen embraced the sense of possibility. Chapter 12. In the weeks after Jenna and Xander's wedding, Stephen slipped into a pleasant routine in his new bungalow. He dedicated evenings to organizing the garage workshop, installing sturdy shelves along one wall, hooking up better lighting. The house itself gained a few personal touches, framed photos of scenic travels, none featuring Olivia, obviously. He purchased a comfortable new bed, a small dining set. Finally, a place that's truly mine. Some nights, old memories flickered, but they no longer paralyzed him with rage or heartbreak. His phone occasionally reminded him that monthly spousal support auto-pay continued, but it was only for a few more months, unless Olivia found a job. He shrugged it off, a small price for final freedom. One crisp Saturday, as he finished bolting a tool rack in the garage, Dennis Wood swung by with a six-pack of craft beer, grinning. "Housewarming gift, buddy. Also checking you haven't turned into a hermit?" They settled in the living room, sipping cold beers among half-unpacked boxes. Dennis teased, "Any budding romance for you? Or are you strictly a lone wolf now?" Stephen rolled his eyes. "Lone wolf for the moment. My plate's full. I'm not opposed to it eventually, but I'm in no rush. This place is my priority." He tapped the coffee table. "And maybe some side projects. Actually, I got a message from a friend of Jenna's who saw the Orchard Arch pictures. She wants a custom porch swing. Could lead to more commissions." Dennis raised his bottle in cheers. "Look at you turning heartbreak into a small business. I love it." A comfortable laugh shared between them, the gloom of the past year feeling far behind. Life was simpler now. Stephen rose early, managed his construction job, returned in the evenings to a calm home or a bit of woodworking. Sometimes he joined Dennis or other pals for a casual dinner. On quieter nights, he read or sketched new designs in the living room. The swirl of chaos that defined his life post-discovery of Olivia's affair was gone, replaced by steady, forward momentum. He occasionally wondered about Olivia, if she found a job or a new path, but he never asked nor spied. "She's not my concern." The auto-pay record showed the monthly sum still left his account, so presumably she hadn't ended it with new employment. "Fine. I'll ride out the next few months." One afternoon, while scanning through personal emails, Stephen stumbled upon an unread message from Diana B. He recognized the name, the wedding co-worker of Olivia's who'd once offered him warnings. Wonder what she wants. Opening it, he read, "Hi, Stephen. I hope you're doing well. Apologies for the random note, but I have a friend who needs a small woodworking job for her new event space. She asked if I knew anyone, and you came to mind. If you're open, let me know. Thought you might want the business." He smirked. Pleased word was spreading about his craftsmanship. He typed a reply, politely saying he was open to discussing. Never hurts to explore. Later, Diana responded with details. The friend was opening a small cafe that doubled as an intimate event spot, needing custom wooden counters or decor. Could be interesting. The next day, Stephen hopped on a short call with the friend, who was enthusiastic about local artisans. They scheduled a meeting at the cafe, another side gig. The Orchard Arch had effectively launched him into a modest niche of handcrafted wooden pieces for events. Stephen felt a quiet pride. "I never planned it, but I'll roll with it." At the cafe site, a corner building with huge windows, the friend, a woman named Leah, showed Stephen around. She wanted a unique wooden bar for coffee service, plus a small stage platform for micro-weddings or open-mic nights. Stephen scribbled notes, gave a rough estimate. She was excited about his orchard wedding portfolio. "I saw the pictures. Stunning craftsmanship." He found himself smiling. I guess that orchard job was more than personal therapy. It's turning into a calling card. They parted with an agreement to finalize design soon. Another healthy nudge forward. As he climbed back into his truck, a ping sounded from his phone. Checking, he saw a text from Jonathan. "Hey man, curious if you've heard? Rumor is Olivia started at a small event hall as a junior coordinator. Not sure if that means your monthly payment might end soon. Just letting you know." Stephen inhaled. So she found some job. Good. He typed back a simple, "Thanks, haven't heard. We'll see if she notifies the court or lawyer." Then he paused, gazing at the city street. Maybe she's picking up the pieces of her life properly. Good for her. He pulled away, not letting it burden his mind further. Weeks rolled by. Stephen advanced the cafe project. The orchard wedding had become a mild local sensation. Pictures circulated on social media, highlighting the arch under the orchard's blossoms. He even got a short mention in a local blog praising the craftsmanship of a new artisan. The irony amused him. This same community once whispered about his cheating wife's scandal, now praising his wedding arches. Life is strange indeed. He found equilibrium dividing his time among his day job, side carpentry, social visits, and the quiet satisfaction of building a life on his own terms. The monthly auto pay to Olivia continued, but he suspected that might end soon if her new job was stable. No big deal either way. The contract only obligated me for up to 6 months total. He barely glanced at the memory of heartbreak. The future felt wide open. One Sunday, Faith, the caterer, dropped by for lunch in the new bungalow. She'd helped once or twice with orchard events, so they'd become casual friends. She admired the simple but cozy interior. "This place is great, Stephen. I bet the garage is your real playground, though." He grinned, leading her out back. Indeed, the garage was partially transformed sturdy shelves lined with wood planks, a large workbench near the window. You guessed it. I might even start official marketing for side jobs soon. Faith scanned the space, impressed. "I see you're serious. Next time I get a bride wanting a wooden cake stand or something, I'm sending them your way." He chuckled. "Sounds good. Thanks for the free PR." She turned, resting a hand on a newly crafted stool. "You know, it's refreshing to see how far you've come since the meltdown. At one point, I worried you'd be forever bitter. Look at you now, productive, creative." Stephen's smile softened. "I had good friends, supportive folks. The orchard arch was a turning point. I realized I didn't have to fear weddings or dwell on my fiasco." Faith gave a warm nod. "We all deserve second chances." A contemplative silence hung between them. Then she stepped away, changing the topic to cooking. They parted on a light note, each with a sense that Stephen's new life was truly blossoming. Later that week, Stephen got an unexpected email from Faith, the lawyer, this time, not the caterer. The subject line read, "FYI Olivia's formal letter re-job." He opened it, scanning. "Dear Ms. Johnson, I have secured a full-time coordinator position at Woodland Center. As of the next pay cycle, I no longer require monthly spousal support. Please terminate the arrangement effective immediately. Attached is my employment letter as proof Olivia Fielding." Stephen leaned back in his desk chair, releasing a slow breath. So it's official. The support ends. Another small tie severed. He felt a curious sense of relief. Now, we have no financial link at all. He typed a quick reply. "Thanks, Faith. Good to hear it." Another piece of the puzzle resolved. With that, he realized all aspects of the settlement were closed. No more monthly checks. The lump sum was paid. The house was sold. The divorce was final. They were two separate individuals forging separate paths. And that's how it should be. To mark the moment, Stephen decided to treat himself. He visited a local artisan furniture store he'd admired from afar. He browsed handcrafted chairs, tables, marquetry pieces, feeling a kinship with the craft. Then he saw a modest but elegant writing desk made from walnut, the finish gleaming. "This would look great in my living room." A conversation with the store owner revealed she also recognized him from the orchard wedding pictures. She complimented his carpentry. He ended up buying the desk on the spot, another step in making his bungalow a reflection of who he was now. As the weeks turned into months, Stephen's new normal felt more ingrained. He completed the cafe project, for Leah a small stage platform and a custom front counter. She posted pictures online, raving about Stephen's fantastic craftsmanship. A few more inquiries trickled in from small event spaces or couples wanting unique wedding pieces. It seemed he was developing a local niche. He still performed his day job in construction management, but occasionally mused about pivoting to a full-time artisan path someday, one step at a time. For now, he balanced both, enjoying the creative outlet. On personal front, he let the old heartbreak rest. He occasionally heard rumors that Olivia was quietly working at Woodland Center. No fiascos reported. She evidently stuck to a lower profile, which suited him just fine. If she was truly reformed, that was her journey. He harbored no illusions of reconciliation. We live separate lives. One late afternoon, as he tidied his workshop, phone buzzed with a new text from Jenna. "We got our wedding photos back. The arch and deck look incredible on camera. Thank you again. We're emailing you some pics. Feel free to use them for your portfolio." He smiled, responding, "I'd love that. Thank you." Moments later, an email arrived with a link to an online album. He scrolled through bright images of the orchard ceremony. The deck and arch appeared in multiple shots, framing Jenna and Xander's happy faces. The carved apple blossoms, half hidden by real flowers, looked magical in the golden light. One photo captured their first kiss under the arch with a whimsical sun flare. Another showed them signing the marriage certificate on the deck steps, guests applauding. Stephen felt a surge of fulfillment, as if each swirl of carved wood carried his triumph over heartbreak. He saved the images, planning to keep them as a testament to how good can still be built from sorrow. Sighing contentedly, he stepped out of his garage, letting the mild evening air wash over him. The neighborhood was quiet, a gentle hush descending as day shifted to dusk. He realized how seldom he felt restless anymore. Life is stable, creative, and open. He locked up, heading inside to brew tea. Another day well spent. Months later, Stephen's bungalow brimmed with subtle improvements, hand-built shelves, a custom coffee table, some new rugs for warmth. The garage workshop thrived, multiple small commissions lined up. He maintained a comfortable balance with his day job, sometimes imagining a full-time craftsman future. Dennis remained a close friend, occasionally popping over to share a beer, see the latest wood project. Jonathan occasionally joked about how Stephen was officially the orchard arch guy. Faith, the caterer, recommended him to a bride for a repurposed barn door altar. Even Faith, the lawyer, had circled back for a friendly lunch, marveling at his new life. Standing on his porch one quiet evening, Stephen reflected on the year since the meltdown. He'd systematically closed every door to the past: the divorce, the house, the monthly support. Olivia was just a memory now. He harbored no active resentment, only a faint regret that she'd squandered what they once had. But that's her cross to bear. I've moved forward. In the soft glow of the porch light, he admired the wood paneling he had personally refinished. The sensation of forging one's environment to reflect the current self resonated deeply. I can shape my life like I shape these boards carefully, thoughtfully, with the scars turned into unique features. On the small table near the door lay the orchard wedding photos, a printed set he'd ordered for his portfolio. He picked them up, flipping through again. The final image. The bride and groom walking hand in hand down the orchard path, arch behind them, guests cheering. Proof that not all weddings are illusions. He set them down, sighing contentedly. Tomorrow he'd keep building both physically in his workshop and metaphorically in his personal journey. No more old baggage, just new horizons. The night breeze rustled the leaves overhead. In that gentle sound, Stephen felt a quiet sense of affirmation. He had reclaimed his life from betrayal, forging something stronger out of heartbreak, piece by piece. Hey, listeners of Temptress Cheating Tales, if you enjoy